Yeah, just kind of getting into the flow of things.
Yeah, sure. You can.
We on? We on?
We're on.
Oh, okay.
Surprise.
Hey.
Top of the evening to you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I've already said hi to Roy and Travis, so... But do the official hello, gentlemen.
Yeah, let me break in right here. You're talking Irish already, but you know that the first day of March is St. David's Day, which is the patron saint of white whales, which is where I came from.
Okay.
Oh, they said white whales.
All right. That's interesting. It's all right.
Did he not say with white whales? I was like, white whales? What about white whales? I didn't know they had
in other news.
Didn't know they had a patron saint. Did you see the one capsize a boat recently? There was a whale that came up and like pretty much ate the boat almost. Like,
sure, that's not AI.
It looked kind of AI, to be honest.
I got some AI clips today that we might end up hitting on.
Look kind of AI.
That's something we're going to have to deal with. We're going to have to deal with. So welcome to everyone. We've decided to mix it up a little bit. We've got quite a few more local people paying attention to the podcast, so we're going to hit on some local issues. I think to start today, I've been gone for. Me and my wife went on vacation, and then she decided to take a flying leap off a flight of steps early this week. So it's been a little bit of a hectic week. I didn't have the normal prep time that I have for a lot of my clips for other things that we normally bring to the table, but. Having been on the cruise last week, I was doing things there, so I got a little bit older clips, but still very relevant.
You were still taking people off from a distance.
I have that effect. I don't know what to say. I try to be as rational and calm and whatever, and like I don't know. So you had mentioned one of the things, I don't remember which. So I guess there was something on Evansville Watch about. Tell me I just heard people complaining that money got taken away.
Yeah, it was two different. It was NOAA and then another organization. It was all weather forecasting related. And I can't remember who it was. NOAA and somebody. I could try to find it.
So the thing that drives me crazy with Evansville Watch or Channel 14 or any of the local news channels is just the basic fear mongering and not telling kind of the whole story about why things are being done and all that. So when I bring an opinion or just my view of things, I'm bringing, the reason why Doge hit heavily with me just because of the transparency and the accountability side of things, right?
Right.
Do we need to spend money on weather prediction and things? Yes, I believe we do. I think I want to be warned when tornadoes are coming. I think that's a good use of money.
Yeah,
I think we should.
I do too. Tornadoes and hurricanes and terrible storms and flooding and all that sort of thing. But do we need 650 meteorologists to take care of that? Wouldn't it be better if we took 24 of them and took care of it?
Well, I would say that's something to talk about and discuss.
Sure.
And I think that's a logical conversation. I think what I was hearing and addressing was more of people just afraid that Doge and Trump don't care about us and are removing weather. And where it affects me is everything that I've heard, kind of similar to what you and I talk about every week with post 2020, the COVID stuff, how kind of the medical arena got captured and we had to trust the science. And if you didn't listen to what the science we were being told was, then you're anti-science and just all that same crap. Well, the same thing that happens in weather. If you don't believe in the version of climate change they're trying to sell you, then you're anti-science and you're a climate denier. And for me, that's anti-science.
Sure.
Like if your point is better than mine, we should be able to sit across from each other. We should be able to sit down and do some research together, and we can agree and disagree. And maybe at the end of the day, I'm wrong. But if you just come in and say, well, I trust Anthony Fauci or I trust the head of climatology, that's not science. Right. There it is. So just to put a pin in it, and I'll turn it right back over to you or Travis to weigh in. My point was, I don't want this organization, this group of people who have used meteorology and used local weather to push climate agendas.
Yes.
Without giving a fair and balanced representation of all things. They push money to drive climate policy. And whenever you spend taxpayer money and you're paying these people and they're saying things and they're fear-mongering and they're telling everybody that they're listening to Al Gore saying the ice caps are melting and the polar bears are dying. And how many years ago was that? And that stuff never came
20.
true.
It was like 50.
Oh, it's like 40
more than that.
years ago.
It was in the 90s.
40 years ago.
the number of polar bears is the highest it's ever been.
So let me just tell you, as soon as I step into the arena, if you're pushing fear crap, if you're saying things that just align with an agenda, I'm going to call you out on it.
Sure.
And if you want to call that, come back and call me a name, I'm going to call you on that too, because I'm not putting up with it. And we have to have civil discussion. We have to agree to disagree on some things, and we have to continue having conversations. Mm-hmm. Why we're in the position we are in is because we've put this power into the hands of media. We put this power into the hands of non-elected officials, and they just make decisions behind our back, and we just got to deal
down our throats.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, that's kind of the way I feel about this whole climate change green thing is crazy. The United States has had a lot of terrible things happen to it in times past, but it's not any worse than anyone else in the world has suffered. They have, monsoons over in Asia all the time, and we have our hurricanes and we have our tornadoes, and believe it or not, getting rid of gasoline-powered cars is not the solution.
Well, I don't even, I could work it as a part of the solution long term. What I have a problem with personally, and I have very good friends that are all in on solar. I have very good friends that, have electric cars and their houses are off grid, and I'm supportive of that. If they can do that on their own, go for it, man. And if I can do it in the future, go for it. The problem with pushing our entire country and our entire city, for that matter, which is something that we need to talk about today, is most people don't realize that solar, like anything that we do with solar or wind, is 90% reliant on China.
Yeah.
And so if something goes wrong with, like we have a huge hailstorm or we get an EMP attack and basically our solar goes down, or the wind stops blowing, or the sun stops shining for a period of time, you basically have no energy. And most people may not understand, because we're so amped up about Ukraine and Russia's the enemy now. Most people don't realize that China truly is in a cold war against us. They have been for a very long. They've been in for a long time. Mm-hmm. So,
and they are very much looking forward into time. And, for them, it's no big deal to wait 100 years, as long as you kill the Americans.
Yeah, if you read the book, The Art of War.
Yes.
And you understand how they operate, they knew they weren't going to come over and invade. They weren't going to be able to take us out in hand-to-hand combat. So they're in it for the long game.
Sure.
And this is not me being China fear-mongering. This is just me saying I don't want to be beholden to the Communist Chinese Party.
Yes.
For my energy. Like, if we can figure out how to build solar panels here, if we can build the microchips and get all the silicone and all the stuff that's needed to build these things, we can have that conversation more seriously. Yeah. But it's kind of like pushing us not to have gasoline-powered cars anymore, even though we don't have the supply to have and we don't have the way to fuel these things.
If you get busy out in Texas and Alaska and start dropping wells, you're going to have enough gasoline for the rest of the millennium, forever.
I don't think supply is the issue. I think it's the emissions.
Well, that's the argument.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it? Yeah.
Well, all these.
Just poking the bear. I'm not saying I'm on that side.
Sure.
No, I mean that's a part of the conversation.
But all the gasoline powered cars have platinum sieves on them that pull out all the bad stuff. What do they call them?
Catalytic converters.
Catalytic converters. I knew it had a C in it. Anyway, and there's tons, billions of tons of crude oil and natural gas. If you use natural gas for something in your car, it has no problems. I mean, everything is taken up when you burn it.
Right.
That's what my family sells LP gas for a rural community from where I'm from. Well, they used to. They actually recently sold, but all of their trucks that they would take and refill were also run on natural gas. And those things.
There's how many?
And there's a lot of that wasted.
Yeah. How many natural gas stations are there in this town? I know the answer.
I can only think of one.
There's one.
That one
You
right off
had
the
one
wood.
finger up, so I was going to guess.
How many are there?
You kind of get that was the tell. I don't know if you know what a tell is, but how many are there? I don't know. Just
No,
one.
I was trying to touch the finger of God out there, you know.
Yeah, I only know
Dr.
the
Roy,
one.
the doctor of energy.
There you go.
What was you saying, Travis? I'm sorry.
No, that's the only one. I was just saying that you're right, and those did the emissions on those were and they actually didn't seem to have as many problems either.
Yeah.
The natural gas trucks versus the
And to convert a
trucks.
diesel truck to natural gas is a simple matter. One gadget on there, and it doesn't take much time at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, the focus for me starting this podcast a couple years ago had to do with anti-tyranny, and it had to do with decentralization. I often wear a shirt that says "decentralize everything," and most
but today
people,
it's Pearl Jam.
most people. I've got a whole reason
He's
why I
got
wore
his
this
Pearl Jam T-shirt on.
I've got a reason
Eddie
for
Vedder.
I've got hopefully we end up talking about this before it's over with. But the reason why I wore it, they are my favorite band, but the whole political hypocrisy of politicians and comedians and musicians and actors, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. Anyway, it started off as an anti-tyranny podcast, and the reason why I want to bring this up from an energy perspective, what decentralization means is taking the power out of the hands of the elites and bad actors, the potential tyrants in the world, and putting more and more freedom and power back into the hands of the people. Like decentralization just means if you can have it for yourself, why do you need 5 other people telling you can or you can't have it? The ultimate goal for me, if we could be self-sustaining in whatever way, as close to self-sustaining as possible, like a 0-point energy, would be ideal. Like you could have your own grid, or we could live in a community and we could have our own mini nuclear facility or whatever, and share energy and do the infrastructure and all that stuff.
3-eyed babies and catfish.
Oh, come on! Don't be that guy.
You're supposed to be a doctor.
Don't be that guy.
Oh, no.
You're bringing in that nonsense. But so like for me, I have a real problem, and this sits right back into the center point conversation. So we're talking about green energy versus gas and oil, and we've been in this long conversation with I think it's DAACE, whatever the Facebook page, where everybody's been out of shape about Centerpoint.
Yeah,
I'm still trying to get the conversation with the local attorney, who I would consider one of the foremost experts in the whole realm.
Right.
Former attorney for Vectren, and I'm still trying to work that out. Maybe next week. Anyway, the point is, I don't want to be beholden to anyone outside of our community when we have energy in our backyard. The farther you get away from pulling energy or what you need to eat or drink out of your yard, you just put more layers of costs and potential tyranny in between you and getting it delivered.
And in my opinion, the reason that Centerpoint is raising the prices is to make things so expensive that people will go out and get rid of their gas stoves, get rid of all the things that the Biden administration said were bad, and that's exactly what they're doing. And they're claiming that it's going to be a whole lot better, but no, they're just running the price up intentionally.
Well, that goes back to Obama. I mean, he said several of his policies would necessarily increase prices, and he felt that was the greater good argument, as we need to raise prices so we can get this thing that's better or cleaner, or whatever the argument that the politician wants to make. Well, again, the real problem that we have especially we're not having the conversation locally with any organization or with any transparency, is the further we get away from having our own power in our own backyard, we are beholden to people that don't have our best interests at heart.
Right.
The closer you can get to someone, like if me and my neighbor have a dispute about something we're sharing, I can go put my hand on and say, dude, what are we doing? Let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. If the people that give you energy are in Texas, sure, and or spread, the people making decisions for us are up in Indianapolis, what power do we really have?
None.
So the argument here, the thing that's kind of out there, and where I have a bee in my bonnet about the local administration, the current local administration, not to even talk about the old one, is at one hand, they play the good game of, I'm going to come out and I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to say, I'm going to get in front of CenterPoint and say, you just can't raise these rates. People are already struggling, blah, 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 blah. So you put on a good fight in the front. But the current administration is very clear and transparent about a green energy push, meaning they want to go more and more green and less fossil fuel and coal. And so most of the people that are in the CenterPoint conversation and the Facebook groups we're talking about how expensive it is. I mean, it's $700 a month for us. It's $500 or it's gone up. There's no end in sight in how much it's going up. And the green policies are not making things cheaper. They will never make things cheaper.
No.
They won't make them better. They won't make them safer or easier.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about them that makes it better. And so there's not that real conversation going on, and that's what I have a problem with. Yeah. So on the one hand, the mayor can say, well, I'm out there fighting good fight against CenterPoint, but what am I going to do? Meanwhile, everything that we're going to do will still have to come through that same group. Yeah. And only it will be through solar, which has its own problems, including what we'd already talked about with China.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So I don't like the hypocrisy of, I'm out here fighting when in fact you're not fighting.
She's not.
She's not fighting anything.
No. She's saying the same thing that the Obama administration and the Biden administration says. We're doing this to help you. And it's not. It's making it worse.
They can't show you how it helps you.
No.
There's no proof of it helping anyone.
Absolutely not.
So, anyway, this is the conversation that we need to have. And if she or anyone that is in her administration would like to have a deeper conversation about that, be more than happy to do that.
I'll put a chair right here.
I've put the offer out numerous times.
We could even Zoom with them if they don't even want to come.
Yeah.
No, I don't. No.
You prefer them in person?
No. If you can't have a conversation, I voted in the last election. I did not vote for her. I wish everyone well whenever they win an election. When Biden won, I didn't vote for him. I wish that he would have did a better job, but he didn't. So now we're doing something different, right? Mm-hmm. So the local effort that we're talking about with CenterPoint and with having a civil conversation and actually understanding what's at stake is we're not letting people who have a financial interest in this whole thing just do whatever they want to do, and then we're just going to kind of deal with it. That's the way it's being structured. We're just going to have to deal with whatever we get.
Shoving it down our throat. Yeah. If you want power, there you go.
So I don't know where to go with this conversation now.
Well, it's they're the only power company around, mm-hmm. so they can do anything that they want to.
Well, I still don't know how that's not a monopoly. Like how that's not something that should be legally required to be broken up or something. I don't know.
I've just to let everyone know that I'm not a big Republican. I have a good buddy who is in the Braun administration, our governor. Mm-hmm. I have asked multiple times for statements. He has promised a future opportunity to potentially sit down and do a podcast with the governor, which I'd like. But please know, I don't have anything against the guy. I hope he does a great job for Indiana. I like some of the things that he says. At the end of the day, he's up there, and none of the people that are in the IURC or whatever that organization is that's making the decisions, none of them live on our power grid. None of them are dealing with any of the costs that you and I deal with. Mm-hmm. So they're just completely out of touch with anything that we're talking about down here.
Yep.
So we have to rein that in. We have to figure out how to stop that. That's got to stop.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone on that board, why is that board even in place? Is it necessary? Can we have something more civilian led? I don't know. I think we need to make some ripe changes. And I'm talking, let's look at all the options. Are there other energy options coming down the pipeline? Can we get into nuclear? Can we get into, I'm all hands on deck.
I mean, if Rockport goes nuclear, I wonder if we can
tap into that.
Get some of that.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, Duke, so I know my wife just lived across the river from Duke Energy, and that power doesn't go anywhere near here. It goes up to like Michigan or Wisconsin or something. And
was Duke over in Kentucky?
No, it's in Indiana. It's just west of Princeton.
Oh,
there's a big power plant over there.
Yeah, that's right.
And she would always complain. She's like, "Well, we get all the crap in the air and the water, but the power doesn't come here. It goes up in, like I said, it's like Michigan or Wisconsin."
Yeah, that's not right. So I mean, I think the infrastructure and getting the real questions answered about why we don't have more competition is something we are entitled to not only ask and get an answer, but we're entitled to say, well, that the old answer is not good enough. Like, if you want to be voted in again, you're going to help us fix this, because we are, in fact, slaves to CenterPoint at this point.
Yes.
Between water and power, my household is $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Mine too.
My parents growing up would have not survived.
No,
I mean, they wouldn't have been able to. They wouldn't able to have power. We had well water, so I mean we didn't have to worry about that nonsense.
We're probably around 700, probably in a much smaller home. We're probably around 700.
Well, you are running
water.
You are running all the power down at your.
Oh, you're talking about the servers and everything? Well, not really. I mean,
What is he mining Bitcoin?
Let me just say, folks, whenever Travis turns on his equipment, if you've ever seen the movie Christmas Vacation, whenever he flips on the light, they got to put in there is nuclear that nobody knows about, and they hit the reserve power.
To be honest, I'm running it on Apple Silicon, so it's actually a very low power consuming chip system, so it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But, so for all you non-techie people, I'm sorry if we just tried to put you to sleep there, but
no, it wasn't that. I didn't get too deep.
I should have had a Christmas Vacation clip. I should have that pulled up just for you.
Just for me.
Just for there. Here's when Travis gets home tonight. He flips the switch. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The power here. We don't live too far apart. The power at my house is going to go.
Is it going to dim a little bit whenever I turn?
Yeah.
Actually, it's on right now. It's constant. It's always running.
Okay.
To be fair.
No.
But it's still.
How many Bitcoin a week are you?
I already told you. I looked into mining, but our kilowatt per hour is too expensive for me to. It doesn't make me money. Yeah. It would have cost me too much money to mine. I wouldn't have made as much back.
Yeah, most of the guys that I know that were mining Bitcoin in 2013, and they can't afford it anymore.
When power prices were lower.
Yeah.
Once again, if I had solar, maybe it'd be worth it or something. If I had some other means other than CenterPoint, then it might be worth it.
I don't think solar could give you the juice that you need. It's just not. It's not.
What's to keep us from drilling a well in our backyard?
Like a like a gas well.
No, like a water.
Well,
I bet there's some type of city ordinance. Somebody's going to come down.
I've got one word. Bureaucrat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I own property in Warwick County, and I'm planning on putting a well in my backyard and not having to deal with it anymore.
Is that going to be the compound? Will I be invited?
You will be invited.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on how
I bring many tools and
depending
abilities.
on how this podcast and the rest go moving forward.
Hey, let me tell you, I got plenty of 45 ACP.
Well, no, we would need you for your medical expertise. That's where we would.
And
need
you're the resident doctor, so you bring your toolkit.
I'll bring my toolkit, but I also bring my 45.
You are also an expert marksman. I know this.
I am a marksman.
And if we need,
see,
we don't want to give away your identity too much.
That's okay.
You're calling yourself out here. So anyway, anyone that's, I'm sorry, we kind of got off track.
We do
this from time to time because we try to have fun. We try to have fun. These conversations are about fun. We've got a lot of local stuff going on right now. A lot of stories that kind of, there's a big story going on about someone that was elected here locally. And I will not mention a name specifically, but apparently the person that got elected did not live in the ward that they were elected to. And there's been a lot of rigmarole back and forth online about it. I've had the opportunity, and I'm blessed to have talked to a couple of the people closely related to the story. And there's a lot more to the story than what the media has shared thus far. And I think Channel 44 was the only one that actually shared anything. And what I really have a problem with this is, again, looking at the Doge style effort. The Doge, to me, is not a Republican movement. It's not a Democrat movement. It's not a libertarian movement. It's a people movement. It's about transparency, accountability, and if you and I, the three of us, are putting money in a pile to send to somewhere, we should agree that that's a good idea. And what Doge is exposing is money that, and from what I understand, it was pretty funny. Elon Musk wore a T-shirt under his jacket into one of the meetings, and it had tech support on it. He's like, this is basically what I am in this building right now. I am tech support and it makes sense. He's like, all of the computers, everything that's connected is not connected to the White House. None of the different bureaus communicate with each other. So like everything is just completely maligned. And
yeah, there's a guy that's been in the administrations, the various administrations, for 40 years, and nobody controls him. except himself.
Who, you have
no, not anybody in mind. There are hundreds of them. These bureaucrats that have been around since, the Eisenhower administration.
Yeah.
And they keep passing it on to the next guy, and they do the same things, and they're always in their favor. And there's push money and hush money that's coming out of the companies that would benefit from this. I mean, you were talking about the media that didn't give the whole story. There's some push money in there.
Oh, yeah.
You say this, and this, but not that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So they're getting both push and hush money.
For sure.
So we were just talking about, Doge and everything. So I thought I'd look up the debt clock real quick. And Doge has current savings of almost 150 billion. We're almost up to 150 billion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that'll fluctuate now that the problem is that when he gives a couple months of, or when a lot of those people that were let go were given a few months of severance, there's no real savings there yet.
Yeah.
Once that falls off, but you were talking about, I have some people who are talking about the Doge, kind of to me, and are trying to, talk about how NOAA or the like the Department of Education or these monies, some of these things that people, park rangers and all these people that are kind of losing their jobs, losing their losing the income.
I had
and
someone
everything.
talking this week about Social Security Administration workers or local people that are affected.
So my thing, and I was having actually my wife and I were in this conversation because she kind of wasn't. She was like, "You're going to take people that have done this for years," and like, well, they've probably gotten complacent. They're not necessarily the best for the job. But anyway, all that beside the point. I think the system that we currently have almost needs to be broken down more than maybe a lot of people would agree with to be able to build it back up. Or I was just sitting here thinking about it. It's almost like cancer. Like they don't just cut cancer out; they cut healthy tissue around cancer when they get right, Doc. I mean, you have to get other stuff sometimes.
Zero margins is what that's called.
Yeah. So sometimes you've got to cut some of the good to get rid of the bad. And I mean, I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And there might be some unfortunate things that hit the chopping block at the moment. And I'm hoping that after some time we'll circle back around and get the right people for the right job.
Chemotherapy technically kills all cells.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And you just hope the bad ones are gone
before you die. Hopefully,
chemo is designed to kill the cells that are reproducing more rapidly than the regular cells. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's able to kill them. But they still kill some regular cells. Mm-hmm. Why do you think people's hair falls out? Mm-hmm. Why do you think people have bloody diarrhea when they're getting chemo? Mm-hmm. It's because they're killing some of the good cells. Mm-hmm. And they have to do that.
Well, there's several arguments that I've heard in this vein, Travis. That was good to bring that up. One of the things I've heard a lot, and again, people are calling Elon all kinds of names. I think he's quote unquote the second most hated person in the world behind the orange guy.
Tesla has dropped a lot.
Yeah, I understand, and the fact that he is willing to sacrifice dividends and income to do what he believes is best for the country. Mm-hmm. Sure. I don't have anything other to say than patriot on that.
Sure.
The argument, though, that I've heard that I really can't really stand is Elon's not elected.
Neither was Fauci.
Well, this is a sweeping conversation. This is neither is RFK. Neither is Tulsi Gabbard. Mm-hmm. Neither is anyone that any president ever puts in their cabinet.
That they appoint. Right. Yeah, right.
True. Yeah. Nor is anyone in Washington besides senators and Republicans.
You elect the president and the vice president.
President is the only person that everyone votes for, and everyone
you vote for the vice president too.
Well, because he's appointed.
He's attached
to him. But did J.D. Vance win Trump any real points? Probably not.
Who knows?
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I read
his book.
I think Elon,
but that wasn't the tipping thing.
In my own personal thing, I think JD might be awesome. He might end up being a great one. I think RFK moved the needle more than he did, and Elon moved the needle more than JD Vance did. So at the end of the day, again, everyone knew what they were voting for. Elon was promised a role. Everyone knew RFK was going to be in Tulsi. And by the way, I just mentioned all Democrats there. So the Democrats that complain about this are really just kind of having temper tantrums. And I don't, they're worried about this and that being exposed. They're worrying about Elon being able to see your tax returns,
Social Security numbers, and bank routing numbers.
So let me just
my employer has all that.
Let me just lay this out there for you, people. Me and Travis are both in technology. There's nothing that you own that's not susceptible, that hasn't been seen or captured at some level at some point.
Oh yeah.
Nothing is secure. The most quote unquote secure government websites can be hacked. There's nothing that's safe out there.
Like I said, the HR in my employer has my routing number, my account number, my Social Security number.
Elon Musk used to be part owner of PayPal. They had
everything
security with all banks and transactions. He understands privacy and security concerns. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to come after your individual account. He doesn't even understand how small the numbers are in any of our accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Why he has the money? He doesn't need our money.
What are you really talking about with that? It's just fear. It's more fear mongering crap, and that's where I kind of just tune people out like that. Like, this is the argument that you're bringing to the table. Like, please bring more intelligent conversation.
Well, then they try to split it. Why does a billionaire care about the little man's money and everything?
Because he's a patriot.
Well, and it's more. I think the country. He's worried about the country.
Well, that leads right into this. Okay, you're queuing up perfectly.
I'm teeing them up for you, baby.
Teeing them up. So one of the things that in this audit, basically, and I don't have the graph pulled up. I'm sure everyone's heard about it. If you haven't, look it up I highly recommend using Twitter Grok right now. It's free. All you need to do is have a Twitter account. It's Grok 3. It's the most advanced AI, and you get it free with your account. Anyway, you can ask it to tell you what Doge has found in regards to Social Security payments being paid to people of a certain age.
Yeah.
So 200-year-olds?
Yeah, there's 200-year-olds, and not a small number of 200-year-olds that are getting paid Social Security still. There's like thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people over 100 receiving Social Security payments right now, and there's not that many 100-plus-year-olds out there.
I'll tell you what happens is the check keeps coming because they didn't report the death to the Social Security Administration, and it keeps coming out, and the kids are living off that money.
Either
or the grandkids.
Yes.
Or somebody else.
That's exactly, that's you just finished the point. It's either that, they're just keep on putting it in the account, and the accounts keep paying stuff, and the household is living off the money. That's part A. I don't know how that stops. Like, did they not do a death certificate? And did that the death certificate doesn't put a stop to that? I mean, that seems like a pretty simple software solution.
Well, I'll tell you, I was the person in charge of my aunt's things after she passed away. And one of the first things I did was to send a copy of her death certificate to the Social Security Administration, because I was honest and I knew that's what it was. But I could have kept that up and not sent it to them. And, that was like $900 a month.
So it'll be interesting to see how many are just families that are just never stopped it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fraud. I don't care how you put it.
Sure,
it's fraud, and you're not entitled to it. We could have the argument whether you're entitled to X amount of dollars for Social Security. I think Social Security is just a terrible program anyway. The savings it has never made sense to me. You put in way more money than you'll ever earn back. If you put in the same amount into an IRA
or 401 or something,
and your family gets to keep that, the government doesn't basically just swallow up everything that you do. I mean, it's the biggest scam there ever was. It's a huge Ponzi scheme. Sure. But you can't take it away now because it's what everybody has bought into, unless you did a payout. I mean, the one thing we could talk about is, like, you've worked however many years, this is how much you've paid into Social Security. Let's pay it out, and let's figure out what we can do with it. That's more transparent.
Well, it's in the water a little bit that I guess it may have been talks. This may just be on social media or something, I don't know, but where some of the savings might get paid out back to us. I think you actually chimed in on that about
they're talking about $5,000 checks from Doge
or whatever it might be. May or may not be $5,000.
The thing about it is the money that you put into Social Security back in 1980 is not worth the same amount of money if you take it out right now.
No, but there's been interest. I'm sure that Social Security money gets put into some type of interest-bearing account. You don't think think it just sits completely with nothing?
The only way Social Security people get paid right now is by tax money. Right now, there's no kitty that's being drawn from.
Yeah.
current people paying in, or who paying? Who?
Oh, right. Yeah. I guess that's true. There's not really a big pot.
In theory, what they were supposed to do is create a pot, and that was supposed to be gathering interest, and then the interest and all that pays out.
Right.
They robbed that. I forgot which president did that. That's been dead for a long time.
The thing about it is, there are more people drawing Social Security as the population ages, and there are fewer people who are working and paying into Social Security. So at some point, they're saying, and maybe as soon as 2030, they're going to run out of money.
Well, they've been saying that for a while, and I think exposing all this fraud, I believe whatever Social Security is as bad as it is, I don't see it going anywhere based on...
Oh, no, I don't.
Since they're fixing it.
Trump said the same thing. He said, entitlements will not be touched. Mm-hmm. And that means Medicare, and that means Social Security, entitlements, Medicaid, and that sort of thing. But, we've got people who are receiving Medicaid who are able-bodied and could work. And that's the whole thing with Medicaid, is that people who are able-bodied and could work are receiving that, and have been receiving that for 5 generations. I mean, you see some people out there who have done nothing but lived on welfare since the LBJ administration.
And a lot of time it's generational. I know of a few families in a rural part of where, kind of where I'm from, who, grandma did it, so mom did it her entire life, and so now daughter's doing it, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, so it ties right back in, like the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse that's been going on. And I'm gonna end up saying something that's the most controversial thing I'll probably say all day, but the last administration was opened up the floodgates and was allowing illegal immigrants in by the tens of thousands. We don't even know how many people. I mean, I was talking about per month, but but hundreds of thousands they let in over time. There's been estimates that I've heard each one of those were costing us up, $5,000 to $7,000 a month, and they were getting basically EBT cards and free food, free housing. Yeah, and yet, here's the thing that I'm going to say that's controversial. When people say, I had somebody that I actually really respect, somebody that I think we're probably 90% aligned on most of the things that we think, but her argument, and she's a former banker, was instead of sending $5,000 checks to each man, woman, and child in a household, which was something that Elon and Trump floated as kind of a give back to. Yeah. Hey, look at what we're doing, and I think it would go a long way to make people like, maybe Doge isn't so bad. Okay,
win them over a little.
I mean, it's probably pretty wise, but I mean, her argument, and I see what her argument was about, is, well, our debt is so high, we just need to apply all that money back to the debt. And I'm like, wait a minute, until we stop the well from running dry from all angles, you don't need to enslave the U.S. citizenry to keep paying for things until we have a full audit, there's full transparency, we know that the leaks are mostly gone, we know where the money's going, and we are assured that what we are giving is going to the right places, the places that we all know and agree to. All these USAID programs that nobody knows, these little holes that are found that, we're sending $40 million to do a trans book in Islamabad or whatever. Yeah. I mean,
Botswana.
Come on. I'm not. Why should I pay another tax dollar knowing what I know now? Yeah. Why not send $15,000 to your house for you and your wife and your child?
And what's going to happen with that money? We're going to put it back into the economy.
The argument that she made was more inflation. And I said, I understand what you're saying there. I see that point. Here's what I might then come back with a counter. Maybe it's a credit, like if you're in credit card debt in any way, shape, or form, or you have a car loan and you mortgage, you want to apply that money directly to something. Think it as a credit and not just something you can go out and buy something and have a windfall. I understand that will cause inflation. If you want it drained out, if you have 20 people in your house and you get a huge check and you go buy out a grocery store, nobody else has groceries. It's a problem. It's a problem. And I know it's a strange way to look at it, but that's the argument.
So many people have credit card debt. That would be the first thing, and give it to them as a credit, and say you can only use this on your credit card.
Well, if you don't have debt, maybe put it into an IRA, or put it into into your private Social Security kitty, or
a 529 for your kid, or
whatever it is. That's great. Yeah, I mean, you want our kids to keep going to college, then let's give you a free thing for a college fund.
Don't go buy a fishing boat with it.
Yeah. So I mean,
but you teach a man to fish.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, so her point was a decent point, and we had several people that were kind of listening to that conversation and like, man, these are the types of conversations that we need to have. It's like, I just don't feel compelled to pay any taxes.
Yeah.
Right now, I just don't. I don't feel it.
There's a lot of, there's a lot out there. Like Obama, I think, got some type of, he got annual.
He was getting royalties
off
Obamacare.
Of, yeah.
Can you believe that?
I don't know if that's 100% verified yet. I actually looked into that, and I need you have a true source?
No. You keep going, but I want to say something on what you just said about how being verified or whatever. I had somebody who was arguing with me about, well, everything that Elon is saying that is monies that he's saving you money for. How can you prove that he's actually saving? Like that's real? How can you prove that? And so my comeback was, so you're saying everything that the media says and everything that the news says is not always accurate? Is that what you're telling me? Because I'll back you on that.
Yeah.
But so how can you trust anything? Yeah. Is what I told them, and then they were like, "Well, no, it's just he's lying." Well, then you lost me there.
Yeah. Well, I say here's the counter argument: we have a $7 trillion annual budget, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
So show me the Excel spreadsheet where that budget goes. We can solve this problem.
Oh yeah.
Like you want the money. This money has to, like, we have this pile of money. We're sending this to this to this. Mm-hmm. We should know where that's going. Mm-hmm. It's accountability and transparency.
And the Department of Treasury has not been doing that.
Right.
If somebody walks in, some undersecretary walks in and says, I want you to send $1 billion to this place, they sign the check and send it out.
No questions asked.
No questions asked.
Yep.
And that has been stopped.
Well, yeah. There was, I think, one of the things when we were on a cruise, somebody was refusing to do that and got caught, and didn't they? They got let go and lambasted,
kicked out.
Yeah. So the big argument and controversial thing that says is I don't think the IRS should collect any money this year, at least not for a while until we get some accountability and some transparency. The second thing that I'll say is this is the serious conversation to where the Bitcoin conversation comes into play. Because and this is what I got into with the banker a little bit, like if you can't show us accountability and transparency, this is the best argument for a Bitcoin or something like Bitcoin, which is not centralized, isn't controlled by the same people that control the dollar and printing of the dollar. The problem with, and some people probably listening to this for the first time might not know the difference between a Bitcoin type of currency and just a central digitalized currency, like it's something the CDC or Federal Reserve might try to put out. The Federal Reserve in control of a digital currency is no different than the dollar, except for the fact that they can see everything you do, track everything you do, and you have no freedom. You're not off the grid ever if they're in charge of that. The good thing about, say I spent $20 for this, or I had a $20 bill here, and I say, Doc, I really like those glasses that you have on.
Yeah.
Give me those glasses. I'm just going to give them to you. I'm like, well, here's $20.
Yeah.
And you can take those glasses off your head. We can exchange something. Like, that's fair. You're fair. Sure. We're happy. The government doesn't need to know about that.
No.
Right? So if you have a central digitalized currency, you and I would have to go through, we'd have to send each other money. They'd have to send you something on your phone.
Yeah.
They would track that. I'd have to tell them what it was. You'd have to, if you made
probably have to pay sales tax.
If you made a windfall of money, they'd try to tax you on something that you already bought and paid sales tax for.
Sure.
So it's just an endless game that they want to look in your pocket at any given moment. So Bitcoin to me is decentralized. It's not owned by any government. There's people that have legitimate fears about what it is and what it isn't. There's money is trust. Our dollar bill is built on trust. And so if
it used to be built on gold, but that went away a long time ago.
And that's a whole nother thing. I mean, the interesting thing, they're saying they're going to audit Fort Knox, which is funny.
There's going to be moths that fly out of there.
Yeah.
Like, there's not going to be anything.
Bats.
Or whatever. Yeah. They're going to open that up and just go.
Yeah. So, anyway, I know we kind of went on a little bit of a rant down in a deep rabbit hole there, but the moral of the story for me, coming back around to the local issues that we're dealing with, is we need transparency, we need accountability. anyone interested in a Doge style effort, it is not political, meaning it's not Republican or Democrat led. I try to remain as neutral as possible. I do lean more right on certain things, but I also lean more left on certain things than Dr. Roy. And I think you lean different ways in different things, and you have different outlooks and arguments. We're talking about topics. We're not talking about aligned political power. We're not trying to build up the Republican Party. You line much more Republican because you've had a long history, and that's what you believe more. And I'll come back and say, well, I don't agree with that. And you're like, well, you're wrong, or here's why you're wrong, and we can have that conversation. Maybe I change your mind a little bit. Maybe you change my mind a little bit, right? But anyway, Doge effort locally is just more about accountability and transparency. We want to know where our money is. We want to make sure that Centerpoint is held accountable, or we're looking to build up other energy supplies that aren't enslaving our children 20 years from now. Yeah. Because if it keeps jumping like it has in the last 20 years, our kids will not be able to live.
Yeah. The reason that I'm a strong Republican was that the first time that I was able to own or receive a salary was right about the same time that Ronald Reagan was elected. Prior to that, I was living paycheck to paycheck. But as soon as Reagan was in, I was actually in the United States Air Force, and I was receiving a paycheck, and it was more than I had usually spent. So I had extra money at that point. And I said, this is pretty nice. What? What'd you say?
I said, what's that?
Yeah.
I don't have extra money. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I was, it was more to myself. I was like, extra money.
I thought you were talking,
Oh, for you. I don't want you to tell me to shut the F up. No, I already vowed that I'm not going to scream that. That's the word that we do not say in your presence.
Don't let Travis say that word ever again.
Ever.
He's been stricken.
Speaking of which, there's a measles outbreak in Texas.
Yeah.
A couple of hundred kids have got it.
I've got lots of clips on measles, and you and I probably differ a little bit on our general take of it. But I do want to mention one thing before we get out of the local realm. I believe it's Utah that just passed, and I was looking for the clip or just the meme that I had. I don't know what it was, but apparently wait. Maybe I pull it up.
Let me show your screen.
Yeah, go ahead. So Utah is set to become the first state to end water fluoridation for all residents.
All right.
I think Idaho, who's approximate neighbor, I don't know if they're bordering or not. They're close.
Yeah, they border.
They're also, I think, close to that. So locally, my efforts are talking to Dr. Roy for the 47th time today. 46th, I think maybe might be the official number. Yeah. We talk about health, medical tyranny that's kind of occurred. It kind of came to fruition in 2020, but a lot of the things we're talking about now are kind of looking back in time a little bit more before we're getting close. And I've always been really staunchly concerned about not just fluoride in our water supply in Evansville, but all the other petrochemicals and pharmaceuticals and glyphosate, different farm runoff stuff. Sure. I mean, we're paying $300 a month personally in this household for water, and it's stuff that I have to actually bring bottled water in to drink because I don't feel like my kids or me want to drink the water.
Growing up, I played so much in the Ohio River. I don't know how I don't have a third eye. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Like I don't know how.
Eyes are a little further apart than they're supposed to.
Well, they're a little slanted too, but don't worry. I was born here.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was much worse back then. I think they've cleaned it up.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I have no idea how I don't have Swamp Thing or something.
Maybe it's made you tougher.
Yeah. Well, maybe. I have a better immune system than my wife.
Well, that's what I was saying.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I drank well water. I was exposed to everything. What'd you say? E. coli in all wells, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Without treatment. I know ours was never treated. So,
I was with you on the fluoridation thing, and I still am somewhat. But when we had, forgive me, doctor, the retired dentist we had here that I can't recall his name,
Dr. Ogle. I almost tried to get him back because Dr. Roy's not going to be here next week, so I was trying to get Dr. Ogle. Yeah, he might be here.
But I think he brought up some good points about. I mean, a lot of folks who would drink public water don't have oral hygiene enough to maybe get the fluoride they need to, or I don't know. Just some of the points he brought up, it kind of moved me a little bit. Well, I'm still not across the line. But.
Yeah, the dentistry profession discovered, whether it was discovered or whether they made it up, I don't know, but they discovered that people who had a significant amount of fluoride in their drinking water had fewer cavities.
Well, there's a lot of fluoride in food as well. I mean, you get fluoride from food.
But if it's made with fluoridated water, but think back to World War II. You know what the number one reason for people being not taken into the military in World War II was?
Bad teeth?
Bad teeth.
Oh, yeah?
Bad teeth. And so many of them showed up at age 19, and they had like 3 or 4 functional teeth left. And that's why the dentistry profession pushed to get fluoride in all the waters. Now, there are some places that fluoride actually has to be taken out of the water because it's in too high an amount. And those are the ones where the children become mentally retarded early if they drink that water. So they actually take the fluoride out of those places.
Yeah, I think, so first of all, you're right. And what I believe needs to happen is just open dialogue and conversation about what fluoride is, what is good fluoride versus chemical fluoride, and what levels are needed for each person. Like Dr. Roy said, some needed to be taken out because it was too much for certain people in certain populations, and yet
it tore their bones apart.
And yet we're dosing everybody the same. So if you need more vitamin C, or let's say you never go outside and you don't get any natural sunlight, vitamin D, you would need the vitamin D supplement. Whereas if I work outside, or if I have a practice of going outside more regularly, I wouldn't need the same level of that. And I'm not saying I would OD on vitamin D, but I wouldn't need it.
And I felt that way too. But then when that doctor brought up, there may be, so let's say there's somebody that doesn't ever leave their house, so they need vitamin D supplement, but they can't afford to buy vitamin D supplement, or they don't want to, or they don't have the ability to be on a schedule to take it or something. That's a whole other conversation.
Vitamin D supplement is cheaper than dirt.
I mean, he brought that up, so I brought vitamin D up. But fluoride, or if we brought up fluoride tablets or fluoride gum or whatever, all these different things.
Here's the real conversation that needs to be had, and you also teed up a very good point. He and I have talked about vitamin D deficiency, and I actually have vitamin D depletion. I have one of the first things I have is a clip here to talk about today outside of the local issues, goes right into vitamin D. And does it cost money? Yes. How much health care are we actually paying for each citizen of the United States? Like
more than any other country in the world.
Our health costs are terrible, and one of the biggest things that all sick people have in common is low vitamin D levels.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we proactively say everybody should go get a vitamin D test? Like, that can be part of your exam.
They did that with COVID.
Be a part of it.
You didn't have to pay for that stuff.
It's magical how that money just appeared out of nowhere, right?
I'm not saying anything.
Paid for these tests. So, figure out how we're going to make this test readily available to people and cheaper. And his vitamin D levels might be fine without vitamin D supplementation. Yours might not be. Mine.
Well, they already supplement things like flour and milk with vitamin D.
Milk, yeah.
The point of that is, they don't give them enough in that. You would have to drink a gallon of milk a day to get enough vitamin D to make your things going on.
And we've talked about this.
The best way to do it is to get out in the sunshine.
Yeah, which we've been fear-mongered and scared out of the sun.
You're going to get skin cancer. It's going to be right there in the middle of your eyes.
Put all this sunscreen on and whatever. And so this is all the stuff that's going to come out with Mahab. We don't need to go too deep down that rabbit hole. We've been lied to a lot about things because they're selling products to us, and that's one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot.
Did Jack Cruz ever explain why Australia has the highest rate of skin cancer.
He hasn't. I haven't.
Have.
You've talked about it. We've talked about that.
Yeah, I've talked about it. But I thought you asked him in one communication.
I didn't get a response from him on that one.
Yeah.
And I know he's busy. He's going in a bunch of different directions.
And,
I think now he's fully immersed with Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
I think he's off the grid.
The thing about it is that everybody says that too much sun causes skin cancer. Well, there's a lot of skin cancer in Australia, and they're not really healthy people there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we talked about part of it from a genetic perspective is a lot of people that were sent there came from
Northern Europe,
where they don't have the same sun levels, right. So they're thrown in an area. And now they're, basically...
Yeah, they're going out on the beaches off of Sydney and laying out there and getting sunburned.
And their DNA wasn't prepared for that.
No.
Yeah.
And they grow a lot of melanoma.
Yep.
But you got to remember that melanoma is the most dangerous skin cancer, but it's by far not the most common. The most common is basal cell carcinoma, and that can be traced directly to your sun exposure.
Right. Well, here's people that if you're hearing this for the first time. I don't think I ever really say this out loud, but the reason why I find me and Dr. Roy's conversations most interesting is, although we agree with most things at kind of the heart of the issue, we have nuanced perspectives of it.
Yeah.
And where Dr. Roy, as the medical doctor with someone much more experienced than me, will say, if you don't have enough high vitamin D levels, then we should or could supplement. And I'm open to that for people that can't or just won't go outside, but the original lesson should be, like you just said, and like you said, the best way to get out is just get outside in the morning, get some natural sunlight, take a walk, get some fresh air. That should give you enough. Touch the earth, do all the things that we used to do.
But I'll miss my stories on TV.
Well, if the masses could be told what was the healthiest thing to do, and they actually did it, that'd be one thing. But most of at least the United States, really don't. Look, I'm drinking Mountain Dew. Doc told me he'd kill me. I mean, here we are.
Well, again, I think
it's dead yet.
It's partially to do with marketing. It's partially to do with you haven't been told the whole truth.
Hooked on sugar.
There's a really interesting. I follow Dr. Brett Weinstein, the Dark Horse podcast. He just he's doing a self exam. Basically, he has a dramatic wheat allergy. So he thought he had a gluten allergy. He didn't have a gluten allergy. He had a wheat allergy. But as he just traveled to Europe, and he ran an experiment, meaning he went and basically swam in wheat. He ate all the bread, all the stuff, and he didn't react the same. So
it's the
chemicals and
processed completely differently.
That they kill the things with. That's everybody ought to know that.
And I think where you and I were disagreeing a little bit is maybe I didn't ask the question right, or maybe you mistook what I was trying to say. Whenever I was talking about gluten and the significance of more and more seem to be gluten intolerant, I think we are, but that's only because gluten is basically wheat, and the wheat has all this poison and nasty stuff on it.
Yeah.
And our bodies are rejecting it.
I tried to explain that to you, but it must not have gotten through. Gluten is only 1% of what's in wheat. Gluten is a protein. And people who are bona fide gluten intolerant
celiac.
Yeah, celiac disease are about 1 out of 100,000. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a whole bunch of other people that can't tolerate things with wheat products in them.
Which just happen to have gluten in them.
Yeah, which just happens to have gluten in them. And it's either the things that they spray on the wheat, or something you're allergic to something in the wheat itself.
I'd be really interested to see the data, like how many people in Europe have wheat or gluten allergies. Like, we should be able to know this data right out of hand. But Brett, I mentioned Brett because he's right in the middle of that.
It's probably 1 out of 100,000, which is the known amount of people with true gluten intolerance.
So Brett said he was just in Europe. He swam in wheat and he was having no allergic reactions at all. Mm-hmm. Even though he's been everything he's tried.
I bet that was pretty nasty, swimming in wheat.
You don't have to take me literally on everything, Doc.
Well,
that just means he was in a pub doing a lot of drinking, swimming.
That's exactly what I've been trying to say is that it's not gluten.
Yeah.
If you have a problem eating wheat products, it's something else in the wheat besides gluten.
So I think one of RFK's biggest roles moving forward with farmers and soil and whatever is going to be, and one of the reasons why he had so many people standing up against him, not just pharmaceutical companies, but I believe it was ag lobbyists, because his promise and argument is he knows that we're getting poisoned with things that are in our soil and being put in our food. And that's going to change
a lot. Sprayed on our food.
Sprayed on our food.
Well, I mean, it's the main thing. Chemicals put in, the red dye that's already gone away magically, just kind of the day one.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? He wasn't even sworn in, and they took the red dye out.
Well, but that doesn't take effect for a little while, though, does it?
No.
Well, here's what I'd say. Like, if we were doing really well and we knew it was poison, we should be calling out companies that haven't taken it out like that, because they're selling it to Europe. Like Fruit Loops, they sell Fruit Loops in Europe. It just doesn't have red dye in it.
Oh, there's a lot of things that they...
So all they would have to do is quit putting red dye in it and change the formula. And I mean, it's going to take a little bit. It'll cost them a little bit.
They have to buy new machinery to do that, and they have to hire new people who know how to do it. And it's going to cost billions and billions of dollars. No, just stop putting poison in our cereal.
Fewer ingredients should cost less money. You would
yes.
Think. You would think. So anyway, kind of ushering out of the local, because we were talking about water and local water, and now we're talking about vitamin D. Just as a general health perspective, I think most people maybe out there aren't aware that poor outcomes in COVID were significantly aligned with low vitamin D levels.
Absolutely.
So low vitamin D levels is not a comorbidity, but it is a signal that a body has. And if you're low in vitamin D, you're also have immune problems in a lot of other areas, as it turns out.
I told you this at the very beginning of my practice back in 2013. I opened it here in southern Indiana, and I would check the vitamin D level in every patient. And I did that for the first 250 or 300 patients. And 2/3 of them were either very low in vitamin D or they were marginal in vitamin D. So I was pushing vitamin D for a lot of people. I don't know whether they took the pills or not, but I would check again when they came back. And a lot of them said, I feel a whole lot better after taking the pills. And you have to keep taking the pills. I've been taking vitamin D every morning for 20 years.
Well, I mean, circling back around to what Travis said, and with the cost of vitamin D supplementation or any other supplementation,
it's inexpensive.
We talked about methylene blue. You and I are both taking. We talk about ivermectin when it comes to getting sicknesses and different things we've been talking about. At the end of the day, again, Travis, just to kind of reiterate, we pay an absorbent amount of money for healthcare and Medicaid and Medicare.
You're telling me
if you'd be proactive in giving people vitamin D supplementation or education on the importance of going outside without sunscreen in early morning hours and just getting some natural vitamin D and getting your body used to absorbing the vitamin D. That's the real thing that you like. Skin is your biggest organ, or at least one of your biggest organs, right? And this is the best.
It's not mine. No, I'm kidding. No, it is supposedly your biggest organ.
Whoa. You don't walk with a limp or anything, so I don't think that's...
I was only born with one leg.
Yeah. Well, actually, the insurance company that runs my Medicare plan tells me things like that. They tell you that you should get out in the morning sun for 2 hours every day.
Okay.
And if you don't, then you have the option to get vitamin D supplements for free. In fact, all of my prescription drugs are free as long as they're generic, and it costs me nothing out of pocket. You get a special allowance credited to you every month that you can buy things like vitamin D supplements. So
saves some money in the long run.
Yeah, it does, and that's one of the things when I used to work for insurance companies. We would deny a lot of things, and I said, wait a minute, why are we denying these things that are going to make these people more healthy so they live longer and you make money by the amounts that they pay in. Why, why are you stopping on some of these things? Like, I mean, yeah, we didn't pay for cosmetic surgery or anything like that, but we started, moving things in the right direction by doing stuff like that. We had no copays on diabetes drugs and syringes and everything else. We had no copays on that. Mm-hmm. And that company actually morphed into United Healthcare, which is the one that I have with my Medicare. I don't know whether any of the other ones do, but I do know that Aetna does the same thing, because they send a nurse practitioner out to the house to interrogate my wife at least once a year.
Interrogate.
Same thing with me. I had my interrogation a couple of months ago, or actually it was just right after the first of the year. And I said, "Why are you doing this so early?" I go, "We want to get ahead of things." Mm.
So to round out a little bit here and then move into the vitamin D, if you're listening to the program,
I thought we're already in the vitamin D.
We haven't started watching clips here, but
okay.
What you're going to get from me and Dr. Roy is some nuanced conversations. He and I are both trying out some different products that we've both done a lot of research on, that we use these because we feel it's a health benefit for us personally. I've got some, I'm not making any money off of this, but I've got some methylene blue in different forms.
Let me see one of those.
We both.
Toss it over here.
It's glass bottles.
Oh, it's glass. It looked like plastic. Sorry.
Yeah.
So me and Dr. Roy have both started taking methylene blue. I'm personally seeing a lot of great benefit from it. You are seeing enough great benefit from it that you're sharing your results with people including doctors that you know. I've bought some now for my wife and for my dad. Mm-hmm. Once they both have tried it for a while, I may even consider it with kids. We'll talk about that maybe in the future, not today.
Sure.
But there's these other things that me and Dr. Roy will be talking about. We've talked about, this is the 46th time, the 47th time, and moving forward, we'll talk about methylene blue. We'll talk about things like ivermectin, because, if you lived through COVID, which if you're listening to this, you did, thankfully. We were not told about certain treatments that had a massive benefit, a health benefit against fighting COVID, that are much better than the one thing that they pushed upon us. We have some clips that we always share about that. I've got some more today if we can get to them. The reason why I'm saying this is that me and Doc Roy are both wearing blue light blocking glasses right now. We do that because we are trying to protect our circadian rhythm and our melanin production process and ATP. So we're doing this to help our cells in our body recover.
Yes.
We sit in front of screens. We watch television. We have fluorescent and LED lights above us, and our bodies are not recovering, and they don't have the proper amount of time to recover, because for thousands and thousands of years, the sun came up, the sun went down. When the sun went down, the melanin recovery process started. ATP was process kicked in, and we were healthier. Yeah. So part of this is just a shield for us to protect our brains and our cells. So just so you see these, but I do have an affiliate link for a blue light blocking glass. I'll share that in the show notes. We don't make a lot of money off of it, but none of us are paid here, so we're trying to pay for some programming.
Right.
Anyway, I do want to get into this vaccination and vitamin D. I've started sharing a lot of clips with this John Campbell gentleman. He is I think he's an interesting guy. He talks to really interesting people, but he is talking about vitamin D depletion, and this kind of is a lead in right into what we've talked about.
Sure.
Here. So let's get into the clips here. This is right from the beginning, so you can get.
Well, a warm welcome to this talk, and welcome back to Professor David Anderson. Professor, thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much, John.
Now, you're no stranger to this channel, of course, but if you haven't met Professor Anderson before, he's a retired professor of endocrinology and a lifelong physician. And there's a nutrient deficiency that a lot of us are probably suffering from in northern climes at the moment that you want to remind us about, Professor. What is that nutrient?
Yes, well, it's vitamin or vitamin D. 3 specifically, which we make. It's spoken of as a nutriment, but it's really a consequence. Most of us get most of it from exposure of skin to sunlight. And this is a major problem. I mean, I'm living in Italy, which about 44 degrees north. But even here, there's not enough sun, even if you go out in the garden regularly. In the winter, there's bound to be a deficiency. And the problem, this has interested me for a long time, vitamin D, since I first started as a junior doctor in Dundee in 1964. And the progress of understanding vitamin D is enormous since then. We understand how it works. We understand that it's absolutely central to being a normal, healthy human being. And what the ultraviolet B light from the sun does, it acts on a precursor, which is 7-dehydrocholesterol, which can go either towards vitamin D or it can go towards cholesterol. And this opens up the B ring so that the vitamin becomes uniquely flexible as a sterol. There's no other sterol that's as flexible as this. And it's absolutely central to all sorts of resistance to all sorts of external and internal harms. And I have, as you know, I've written a couple of books with David Grimes. The first was on COVID, because we both independently woke up to the fact that COVID-19, which it turns out is a synthetic virus, man-made bioweapon, in fact, is highly sensitive to having a decent level of vitamin D. You can shake it off yourself easily. But if you're D deficient, it's been constructed in such a way with this furin insert that it's highly damaging. And, it's been constructed as a bioweapon. And now the sequence of this patented virus, the sequence of this insert, a long furin insert, is also highly damaging to repair mechanisms. So and this has been used in these pseudo vaccines. Now, what I wanted mainly to say today is to tell the audience, remind them that you can supplement yourself with vitamin D really easily. It costs you about 10 quid a year, I mean, it's peanuts. And this will bring it's very important to get your blood level up above 50 nanograms per mil.
All right, Travis. So what I try to do with seeing things and paying attention to things, so everyone doesn't have to pay attention to everything, because we don't have enough time. Most people don't have enough time in the day to pull information from the internet and follow this and listen to that. So I try to bring in Dr. Roy. We talk about why it's important, and then we bring in researchers and people like this gentleman who's been a doctor for his entire career in a completely different area of the world, and we're now organizing around information that helps everyone get healthier.
Sure.
And so it's not just that we're coming on, we're listening to Doc's the end all be all, everybody's got to do what Doc says. That's part of it. He's part of the equation because he's local, and he's here that he should give you assurance and trust that there are local doctors here that are paying attention to these things and are open to hearing these things, because this is not something typically that you hear from most doctors. Like most doctors in town, they only have a few minutes in any given day that they can sit down with you. They ask you a couple questions. If you're sick, they give you
don't even look you in the eye.
Don't even look you in the eye. Right.
Don't even touch you.
Yeah. So I think we've sent Dr. Roy. He was complaining about having too many patients last week. So I don't know if you still got any space this week, but
well, I do have some space this week, but I was complaining about having too many patients. I saw 7 patients last week. When I was actually actively practicing, I would see 20 per day. So it's a big reduction.
But you're much more flexible now. Like you're working around people's schedules and kind of more on a. I don't want to call it retired because you're not retired, but you're definitely. I guess
slowing it down a little bit.
People always came to you mostly, right, when you had a practice.
Yes.
And now you're more flexible, and you do go to people sometimes, or you'll meet them in a different location.
Meet them at my small clinic.
Small clinic, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you need a local physician who's going to give you the most advanced ideas and information, Dr. Roy is the guy. I've got my dad going to them. My wife goes to him. He is a friend, and this is a shameless plug. I'm not getting any money back from his practice. He's not paying.
Not going to give you any Bitcoin or anything?
He's not. No. He still hasn't given me any damn Bitcoin. I'm kind of mad about that. But it is.
I gave you some ivermectin. What else do you want?
I haven't needed it, Doc. Yeah. It's not really paying me. I've actually, every time you give me some, somebody needs some, I hand it to them, and I give you money. So I don't know how to. Anyway, so yeah, if the moral of the story is here, he does have a few more slots. So if you need a local physician who will look into these things and pay attention to these things, that's what we're doing. Right. And he's open to hearing these conversations. So I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
No, not really.
Okay.
But I agree completely with this gentleman that vitamin D is essential. And he's an endocrinologist, which means that he deals with the endocrine part of the body, the hormones. And I tend to think of vitamin D more as a hormone than a supplement. And it truly is, because it's something that your body can create vitamin D, but only if it has outside information like sunshine. Mm-hmm. In years past, when we were an agrarian country, everybody got out in the sun all the time.
Everybody was in the sun, and where you and I have a little nuanced conversation is I am big into earthing and grounding, meaning we spent thousands of years with bare feet on the earth, and farmers, hands in the soil and actually touching the soil. To me, there is, yes, you're out in the sun, but you're also touching the earth, and you're connected to the earth, which to me has a lot of benefit. We don't do that anymore.
But yeah, we don't do that anymore, and really sticking your hands in mud puddle is not going to help you with your D3 level, but getting out for 2 hours a day in the morning sun will. And taking vitamin D3 supplements. And if you can't tolerate vitamin D3, we can give you vitamin D2, and your body will convert it into B3.
And Doc will have conversations with you every time about get out in the morning sun, spend time outside, get natural vitamin D.
Yes.
Like my wife is intolerant to vitamin D3, and she used to spend a lot of time in the sun. She got skin cancer. Skin cancer doctors told her she needs to not spend time in the sun and put sunscreen on, which made her vitamin D levels worse.
Yes.
So it's like this kind of revolving door downward.
We're putting her on vitamin D2, which her body can convert to vitamin D3.
Yeah. The moral of the story is me and Doc Roy started talking because we both knew COVID was a terrible situation, no matter how you took it. And we both come to understand that vitamin D is low vitamin D levels directly related to negative outcomes in COVID. And so the moral of this conversation is, if you want to protect against future COVID outbreaks or other viruses of any sort, any kind of illness, get your vitamin D levels up. Everybody can pay a little bit of money. He said 10 quid. I don't know what that is in euros.
10 quid.
Did you do the number?
So,
10 quid is what?
Sorry, 1 quid was about 1.26 US dollars.
Yeah, so about $12.
So they must get it a lot cheaper there than we get it.
Yeah, it's cheaper there because a bottle of 100 tablets, and that's good for 3 months, will probably cost you, $6 or so.
Okay.
They're very small.
So again, does it cost a little extra money? Yes. Don't go buy your Mountain Dew or your Starbucks and get your family some vitamin D3, or better yet, push them outside like they used to do to us when we were kids.
I don't come home till the street light comes on.
There's no food here until that thing happens.
That's right.
Since we're kind of in the vitamin D realm, you could listen to this whole clip. Depending on how this whole show is going, I'm like, we could listen to this 16-minute clip, and they say a lot of really other interesting things about vitamin D and the benefits of it. You can see this. Do your own search. Dr. John Campbell, vaccination and vitamin D depletion. This was dropped 3 days ago, so that would have been. Today is the 28th. That'd have been around February 25th of 2025.
Yeah.
I strongly recommend you following this channel. I get a lot of great insights from him. But again, we talked a little bit about COVID. One of the hot buttons that we've talked about regularly is the COVID vaccine narrative and how that has changed now. And really changed now that RFK's in the building and Trump is. I don't think Trump really has come out and had the open and candid conversation that he needs to have. I believe they're prepping him for that.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to come out and really have a conversation about what happened when COVID hit, how he was snowed by our medical establishment and pharma, and I think RFK is going to kind of lead that charge. But the reason why I said that is because there's a lot of media, there's a lot of politicians, there's a lot of musicians and actors that were adamantly just pushing vaccination down people's throat, like calling people all kinds of names, racist, sexist, xenophobe, homophobe, every name in the book, simply because they wouldn't take a vaccine. So people that wouldn't have normally taken it because they weren't sick, or they weren't they're compromised or immune compromised, or they didn't feel like they felt like they could fight it naturally, went ahead and took it, and now there's been a lot of significant damage to people.
Sure.
I believe my wife is in the middle of a very significant damage going on right now. She's dealing with health issues she never had to deal with before. She had almost instantaneous high blood pressure spike that has never gone away. She had to get on blood pressure medication. Travis's family has had some direct things. You've had some direct things. So the reason why I'm going to share this next clip is because this particular journalist, and I need to find it. This particular journalist was one of the ones early on. I don't think she was as harshly critical of people, but she definitely was in the conversation of, in the media, people saying, "Get the vaccine or you're doing harm." And I'm
the vaccine or you're killing my grandpa.
Yeah,
remember all that, like just such.
I hope this is the right clip. Let me get it queued here before we.
I've got audio off right now.
Okay, here we go.
You ready?
Yeah, hang on. I need to start it over.
Sorry.
That's right. Ready? Go ahead.
Something I'm seeing with lots of patients as more and more reports coming out. And I think, what really needs to happen, Megan, now, there needs to be a moratorium on this COVID vaccine globally. Certainly I know, and I'm sure you've read this, that, people who are in prominent positions, certainly within the new Trump administration, I know they've already expressed concerns historically about the COVID vaccines. We don't need to name them. We all know who they are. But I think the one thing that still needs to happen, and I've got to be honest, I think, President Trump is a remarkable man in the way that he has come back. He's so resilient. He's exactly the disruptor we need right now to really change the system for the good. And he's made some really important comments about making sure big pharma companies are accountable. I don't think yet he's on the same page, and probably because he doesn't have the full information around the COVID vaccine. One of the things that keeps getting perpetuated in the media is this, and I'll explain why this is completely false, that the COVID vaccine has saved tens of millions or millions of lives.
No.
And the data on which that information is based, Megan, is not even, it's the lowest level quality of evidence. It's not even considered in the hierarchy of evidence-based medicine, to the extent where one of the leading figures in the world in evidence-based medicine, a guy called Carl Hedigan at the Center of Evidence-Based Medicine in Oxford, wrote an article saying that this claim is implausible. Not just him. In the United States, you have the most cited medical researcher in the world. His name's Professor John Ioannidis from Stanford. I call him the Stephen Hawking of medicine. a couple of years ago, he wrote an article in one of the peer-reviewed journals saying that non-randomized studies, so studies which aren't the one which I described earlier with the 1 in 800 figure of harm, he says that claims of them being, so beneficial or preventing deaths from COVID, et cetera, may be spurious. In other words, fake. So, we need to really put this to bed. And I think if anybody, we need to have this conversation so that President Trump, and I think he's up for turning, because I think he was deceived, he was misled by these drug companies. We need to get to a situation where he comes out and says, listen, you know what, we did this with the best of intentions. And it's true, we may have saved, some lives, certainly in the high risk people. But overall now, the fact that it was given to so many other people at low risk, it's very clear, Megan, for me, it's very, very clear with the evidence that we've done more harm than good here, and it needs to stop. And the reason we need to stop
right about
this,
now, let me ask you this, Asim. By the way, before I forget, the earlier episode with Asim was episode 964. Right about now, a lot of viewers are having the water rising right here. Like, they're starting to get very stressed out because virtually everybody got the vaccine. And we have seen, who among us has not seen a sudden death by a loved one, a friend, somebody else's friend, etc., over the past few years and wondered, is it related to that vaccine? And they will never say it was the vaccine. Just nobody says that. But it's like, okay, young, otherwise healthy people are dropping dead. And you both worry for those you love and you worry for yourself. I talk to people who are going down to Mexico and getting all their blood replaced. I'm like, well, how could that possibly work when you've altered your genes? If you've altered your genes, replacing all your blood with new blood is not going to change it. And your own body, I think, replaces your blood anyway over the course of time. Anyway, is there anything you can say to make them feel better about their prospects right now?
Well, listen, I think we have to, confront an uncomfortable truth, Megan. Let's be honest first and foremost. But one of the things why we need to get this stopped and pulled and we need the president involved is because, it's going to give us more information of what we need to do to sort this out. Identify who's at risk so people don't worry unnecessarily. Identify who may be at risk of a further problem. And then we can use the best minds of science and medicine to actually allow research to take place to find the solution, Megan. That's another issue. It's not just like, people said to me, Dr. Malhotra, listen, it's happened. People don't know about it. I said, no, this is going to be an ongoing issue. And we need to talk about it right now so that we can stop problems in the future. One of the things I do, for example, is I see many patients who are vaccine injured. One of the definite things they can do, certainly which will help, which is exactly what Make America Healthy Again is about, is optimize their health when it comes to diet, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to reducing stress, because all these things are additional factors that make you more likely to suffer from these vaccine injuries. One of the other issues that's emerged as well, unfortunately, is that, and it's interesting, you said it's not unusual that you got COVID about a month after having the booster or the second dose, because we now know, and it sounds crazy to say it, and it's not just me. I had an email exchange with one of the world's top immunologists. His name is Robert Clancy in Australia, and he just thinks it's mind-boggling for him that this is still being used. It causes immunosuppression. We have one of the world's top oncologists, Angus Dalgleish in the UK, who is actually behind, identifying the CD4 cells being involved in AIDS and HIV.
There's no
right. He's a very eminent guy. He's an oncologist and an immunologist, and he's saying that it causes immunosuppression, and especially people.
All right, this is good. Again, this is. I think Dr. Roy's head's gotten bigger. His brain must be getting bigger or something.
Yeah, the only thing
about
the
to
size
explode.
is just
we can so you can spend some of the windfall that we've sent you with the programming, and we can actually get you some sliding headphones that'd
be nice,
a little more flexible. So this Megan Kelly with Dr. Hasim has kind of risen in my people that I'm looking at.
Megan Kelly, mine too.
Oh yeah. So you remember a few years ago when I don't remember exactly how long it's been. It's been over 2 years when we started talking. Do you remember me talking about a think tank concept?
Yeah.
Where we get the best, brightest minds and doctors together and they start talking about the different things that are going on and offering ideas. This is the type of thing right now that I think is just now kind of occurring. And,
I agree.
It's incredible to hear that conversation, that mindset, and the organization of people, him talking to people in different countries that have been, people that have spoken out about it sooner than others, people that aren't still falling into you still have to get, here's what I'll say. I can't believe they're still selling COVID vaccines. I can't believe it.
And they're still pushing them.
It's unbelievable. And the fact that anyone would think about taking an mRNA vaccine at this point is just unheard of. And to me, any organization, medical system or whatever, that's still pushing them and they're not paying attention to this, there should be repercussions moving forward. We're past that point of you just can ignore it and it's going to go away. We're past that point. So I hope that me repeating these types of videos is anyone that's listening that's not questioning these things. If you don't agree with it, go out and get involved and tell people how they're wrong.
Bring me some proof.
Bring some proof, right?
Yeah.
That's what we always ask for. So anyway.
Well, so many, and Megan was actually completely on with that. When you see healthy people falling down dead, the first thing that comes to my mind is, what is their vaccine status? Mm-hmm. And, there have been 250,000 times more people dropping dead, between, no, that was a little bit off number, but between 1965 and 2019, there were about 2 or 3 athletic deaths, immediate athletic deaths in the United States. And since 2020, there have been about 28,000. So, you can't tell me that this is just coincidence, that all of a sudden athletes are dropping dead on the field. And, it happens all the time. That's what that dirt idiot tried to tell me a year ago when I was at my 50th anniversary of graduation. He said to me, it's like 1 out of 5,000. And I said, no, it's not, Pink. It's crazy. They're dropping dead like flies. And he got up and walked away, left his breakfast there and everything, ran away from me. Well, he didn't run, but he walked away because he knew that I wasn't going to stop picking on him for this.
Or 1 in 5,000, though. I mean, how many people you think there are? I mean, that might be accurate because that's
300 million in the United States.
Or are you talking vaccinated, or you mean just 1 in 5,000 of everybody?
Yeah, 1 in 5,000 of everybody. But, if you're that 1 in 5,000, or if you're married to that 1 in 5,000. I mean,
that's 60,000 people.
Yeah.
I was doing the quick math there. 1 in 5,000 might be accurate, but that's still a lot when it comes to how many people are here.
Yeah.
I have a side off question for you guys.
Sure.
How much do you spend any time on Facebook? I know you do because
I've seen some of your stuff. Yeah.
Do you spend any time?
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed a massive influx in different ad feeds that are hitting you that are just clearly spam, like news stations and radio stations out of Texas, basically sending opposite messaging of the things that we talk about?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Those are the ones that Soros owns.
Okay. So I just want people to kind of be aware of something. We don't really talk, me and Travis have talked about AI and how that's going to impact the things that are getting put in front of us a lot moving forward. And there's just a redundancy and a massive amount. Like every third post, a lot of times, like right now, it doesn't seem to be as bad. Every third post for me throughout the day as I'm looking is silly things that are just completely false, but they sound compelling enough that I know a certain amount of people will buy into them. It seemed to me mine were dominated by pharmaceutical and deep state type of stuff.
I think most of mine is retargeting of what I've seen, because I get some.
Well, I get retargeting too, but I get the ones that you're talking about.
I had some, I thought, linked, and I've gone to the links to try to find them, and the ads and the pages have disappeared.
Yeah.
The one that I get a lot is actually this one. It's a shelving thing that will drop open and you can keep your pistols in it. Yeah. I love that one. Anyway, I see that one all the time.
Well, that's a good one. No, that's more of just a retargeting ad. What I'm talking about is more of a an organized narrative.
I think you piss more people off than me. You probably
do. I have seen a lot of Pfizer commercials that talk about RSV, talk about flu, and they talk about COVID, and they say you can get all three in one shot now. Well, it's bad enough to be killed by the COVID shot. How much more do you think is going to kill? How many more thousands of people are going to die from this thing? And they haven't tested it except maybe on some mice or hare or rabbits. And that's it. And you're putting this on sale and you're pushing it on people, elderly people, especially with RSV. And we don't have any idea what that thing's going to do.
Well, so, what you're talking about is who can, if Trump wouldn't have won and if RFK wasn't here, who would we really be able to trust in giving us actual factual information?
Nobody.
The peer review process, you and I have talked about time and time again.
Well, the one that I reposted up there about peer reviews said that 50% of the doctors who actually did the peer reviews are in the pocket of Big Pharma. And I put up at the top, not this doctor. I haven't had one penny in my hand from pharma. And when the pharma representatives used to come to my office and say, I want to see Dr. Arnold at his next break, they would get turned away. I told my front lady, I said, if they come in here, I am not looking at them. I'm not talking to them. In past years, I've had people like that actually barge into my office while I was talking to somebody and say, I need to talk to you, doctor. And I said, show me your warrant.
Pharmaceutical pill pushers?
Yeah, pharmaceutical pill pushers. I said, I need to talk to you, doctor. It's important. And I said, well, let me tell you something. If you don't have a subpoena or a warrant, you're going to have a hole in your chest in about 5 seconds.
Well, the point of listening to the Dr. Seams and bringing up the think tank concept and having the conversations you've had, questioning the peer review process, questioning, quote unquote, what the science was, is pharmaceutical companies have controlled the narrative across the board. In social media companies, they put up these ads that brainwash people.
They put up the ads and they say no comments now.
Yeah, so
you can't comment on that. So I block them.
Well, I've blocked no fewer than 100 of them, and they just keep coming back. So I want everyone to hear this particular thing. Some good news, because pharmaceutical has stricken down a peer-reviewed study, and I think it came back. So I think this is Dr. Mackes.
I just wanted to share a little bit of breaking news with you. I found out a few hours ago something that very exciting. Last year, some of us submitted a vaccine injury paper to The Lancet, to one of the biggest journals in the world, co-authored by Dr. Peter McCullough, myself, Dr. Mark Trozzi, Dr. Roger Hodkinson, and other doctors. That paper was about autopsy series, the largest autopsy series in the world of COVID vaccine, people who took COVID-19 vaccines and then died suddenly a few days or a few weeks after. Yep. That paper was downloaded hundreds of thousands of times, and within 24 hours, there was so much pressure put on by the pharmaceutical industry that The Lancet took the paper down, canceled it, and basically wanted to cancel it forever so that it would never see the light of day. I just found out a few hours ago that that paper has passed peer-reviewed and is going to be published. It is the largest autopsy series in the world. 325 autopsies of COVID-vaccinated people who dropped dead a few hours or a few days or a few weeks after taking the COVID-19 vaccine. We did a rigorous review of these autopsies, and we found that about 74% of the cases of sudden death were caused or contributed to by the vaccine. That is now a peer-reviewed paper that's going to be published. And the reason I'm telling you that is that there is more evidence coming every single day. And it's not a little bit of evidence. It's not a case report here that they're going to dismiss, or a case report there, or a paper that the Lancet is going to take down and say, don't look at this autopsy series, and we'll just bury it and make sure it never sees the light of day. There's going to be a tsunami of evidence of the harm of these COVID-19 vaccines, whether it's harming children, pregnant women, adults.
All right, Travis, I'm going to give Doc the mic here, but the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing here and why I invite Dr. Roy back, and we have had all these conversations, is because I'm concerned that messages like this don't just show up in front of people, and people aren't paying attention, and so they're just going on about their day, which is what most people should do. The reason why I want to put this in front of people and put this in front of people, because I know the local media sure as shit isn't going to do it.
Yeah.
I know our local medical is not going to come to the forefront and say, hey, we've screwed some things up here. We need to fix it. Mm-hmm. So the only way that we can get this word out is enough grassroots people are talking about it and share it with each other that we can't ignore it anymore, and they can no longer pass forward. So that's the reason why we keep hitting on it. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but quite honestly, I don't think the horse is anywhere close to dead yet.
I don't think it's dead. I think it's alive and kicking. And every time that I have reposted this one, the trolls crawl out from underneath their bridges and start saying, "Where's the science with this? What's going on? Give me some stuff." And I say, "Look, it's right there. They've done it." And I usually throw up a picture of from the mortician who shows all the large clots that have blocked the arteries of people who died quickly after getting the shots, and it's horrible. There's a guy on X, Twitter, that shows pictures every day of clots that he's taken out of people who have passed away suddenly, healthy people who have passed away suddenly. And he says, look, here they are. Here are the clots. You don't see clots like this in normal dead bodies. Mm-hmm. You just don't. So, yeah, I see a lot of this, and I see a lot of pushback on it.
I think the tide is turning. The tide is turning. It feels like.
When was that particular one put out?
It was in a reel, so I don't know how recent that was. But what I know,
probably about 6 months old.
Okay, so. But the fact of the matter is, I haven't seen it anywhere in local media. It should be something that everyone.
No one's going to show that.
Well, but that's,
they are though.
So that kind of leads into. Okay, well, people are still concerned about COVID. Still, people aren't aware.
People get COVID, yeah.
And so the only plug that we do today, really, besides if you want to buy the blue light blocking glasses, is Dr. Roy does have some ivermectin available. I think you just got a big shipment in.
I did.
And while he can show that there, all the pricing, it's $30 for a 10-pack. A 10-pack is for 2 people, 1 treatment for COVID. And I'm just sharing, if you want to pull up my screen here, Travis, there's something that was released from Epoch Times about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine prescriptions soared far above levels before COVID-19 pandemic, according to new study. Researchers from University of California, LA, said that nearly 3 million ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine prescriptions were issued during the pandemic, totaling some $272 million, according to news released February 20th. And I know locally and even nationally, people were made fun of and doctors were canceled and threatened, and yet there were still people in the back channels still doing it like you that were still doing it anyway.
Well, I'll tell you this. It was hard to find ivermectin at that point in time, and there were really only 2 pharmacies in town that had it, and they only had 3 milligram tablets, which meant for a day's worth, you had to take 4 of the 3 milligram tablets. What comes in these is 12 milligrams, and that is what you should take if you have COVID, is 12 milligrams a day for 5 days.
As in addition to getting your vitamin D levels up, in addition to getting outside, getting fresh air, doing the normal things.
And citrus fruit. It definitely helps.
Okay.
So that's the thing. I had trouble finding. Once I decided to send it, I scooped around behind the curtain and found out that there were 2 pharmacies that were doing that. Are those CVS pharmacies? No. Are those Walmart pharmacies? No. Are those Walgreens pharmacies? No. These are independent pharmacies that had those out, and they said, sure, Doc, we got plenty of it.
Well, and this ties right back into the other things that we've talked about earlier in the podcast, the orange glasses that we're wearing, the methylene blue. We're talking about redox potential.
Yes.
And if you want to give just a slight, what is redox potential? Why are we really wearing these orange glasses? Why the methylene blue? What are we trying to do here prior to getting COVID to set ourselves up to not get us sick?
Okay.
High vitamin D levels, and what are we doing here?
Yeah, high vitamin D. You said E.
I meant D. Vitamin D. If I said it, it was
okay. Your cells have little engines in them, and those engines are called mitochondria. And those mitochondria form the electricity, if you will, to keep your body going. And a lot of you have cars, of course, and if you want to make your car run a little faster or run a little better, you pour STP into the gas tank of it. Well, adding methylene blue to your body in modest doses will speed up these mitochondria, and they'll produce more energy, and you'll have more energy.
And the other thing I've come to understand is the methylene blue targets getting rid of damaged cells.
Yes.
And it doesn't target cells that are not damaged. So it helps build your immunity up naturally.
Yes.
Even though the chemical itself is an industrial
textile dye.
It's a textile dye. It's actually made to clean fish tanks, and it was actually made to dye blue jeans, but it was also called the magic bullet back 100 and something years ago.
Because people discovered that if you took a small amount of methylene blue, that you were likely to get over urinary tract infections very quickly. We didn't have antibiotics in the 1920s and 30s. I mean, penicillin was the first one, and it came out in 1929 and didn't become in great use until about the Second World War. And but urinary tract infections were common. And that's what I mean by urinary tract infections. If a man or a woman develops an infection in their bladder or their kidneys, methylene blue is excreted from your body in your urine because if you take methylene blue, your urine will be a bright emerald green. And that also kills bacteria. So it will work. The first time I encountered methylene blue was a guy who came in with a urinary tract infection, and he already had methylene blue in his urine because he had a catheter in his bladder, and his urine was green. And I said, "What the hell's going on here?" And the urologist explained it to me at that point. And we gave him some stronger antibiotics because we had those in the 1970s, and he recovered. But methylene blue kind of jumped out of the spotlight for about the last 40 years, and then all of a sudden we've discovered that it makes the mitochondria in your cells work more efficiently. And they produce compounds that will ultimately be used to increase your energy and increase your immunity. So
yeah, and there's also some things that people are doing. You and I are both doing red light therapy, which neither one of us are making money off of that. So red light therapy to me is what I'm using it for with methylene blue is a targeting mechanism of redox.
We're all doing the same thing. And there are a number of different places in Evansville where you can get red light therapy. Chad goes to one. I know another one. It's called the OSPA, and they're one of the most decorated spas here in town. They've been chosen by the Courier Press a number of times.
So they do full massage and all that stuff?
They do full massage. They do facials, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll give a shout out to Optimize You and Derek and the entire staff at Optimize You. They are amazing group. I do the sauna infrared there.
Yeah.
I also do a cold plunge a few times a week.
You're crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's the thing I look forward to most on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday these days. It's pretty fantastic. But they also do the hormone therapy and the different things that.
Well, the OSPA doesn't do any hormone therapy, and they don't do any cold dunking, but they are the most inexpensive.
They're not holding their head on. They're not holding my head underwater or anything, Doc.
They're the most inexpensive saunas that you can get. It's $25 for a month's worth.
So you can do kind of an unlimited, as long as you fit into the schedule of it and all that.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's I only go twice a week, but it works for me really, really well. Mm-hmm. It's 30 minutes sitting in the sauna. It's red light in there all the time, and it's hot. It's 140 degrees, but it's not like a steam room. It's dry heat, so you'll sweat a lot in there. They have towels for you, so you can keep yourself clean there. But anyhow, there are a lot of places around that will do that for you, and it is well worthwhile for, you can get, if you wanted to go every day, they're open 6 days a week, and you get a 30-minute. I just couldn't stand it for, more than 2 times a week.
Right. So I guess to kind of round out this segment, I do want to get into some national stuff. I got a bunch of really cool clips that I know we'll enjoy and have fun with. Anybody that has questions about any of these medical things we've talked about, I am not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. Dr. Roy is a doctor.
But you have one sitting across the table.
I have one across from me. And I share information with him. I try to boil things down to a simple level. Some people, have talked about body hacking, life hacking, and just whatever. I try to get through all the BS of products that people are just plugging products to make money. The things that we talk about, whether it's ivermectin or methylene blue, are so cheap that pharmaceutical companies will not really even promote them anymore. That's one of the reasons why we agree that we like them, because it's something that
they're inexpensive.
There's no profit motive. The glasses that I'm wearing on my face now are prescription. They're probably less than $20. The ones that I plugged in my own that I think they're a little bit more expensive, but some of that money is going to come back to the programming, which what we're trying to do. But any of these things are just out there, and I can send you a link if you reach out to me or Dr. Roy on Twitter. But anyway, if you get anything else to say, kind of to the local health population or anything that we've talked about, Travis, you got anything to finish up with that?
No, not really. I'm looking forward to hearing about your Jam and Pearl. But
let me give you the points in this. Try to keep your vitamin D higher than 50. So to do that, you need to take 5,000 units of D3 per day, and or get out in the sun for 2 days. Not the same kind of sun that they have at the sun tanning places, but I mean the real one up there. You can't always do that in Indiana because we have a lot of overcast stuff.
Very gray in winter.
Yeah, you can do that. You can exercise, and you would probably need to do about 10,000 steps at least 4 or 5 times a week. And I do it with an 83-pound dog in front of me dragging me along. Then try to get some red light treatment. The one that Chad mentioned and the one that I mentioned are just two of several in town.
There's a lot of people that are doing it in their homes now. I mean, I think you can get a cold plunge and a decent red light therapy probably for total of a couple few $1,000s. Like for a lower end one, you can spend like
the guy, one of the patients of mine has his own sauna, and he said it was like $1,500.
Okay, that's not bad.
And
cold plunge is about the same. I think you can get them at Sam's or Costco now for a few hundred bucks.
Yeah, the owner of the OSPA told me that hers was just under $2,000 that was there.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, and it's a very nice setup, and the people at the OSPA are very nice. So check them out. They're located on Tudor Lane.
And just for the record, they are not paying the program any money.
They are not.
There's no kickbacks at all here. So
no, this is not a commercial.
So I've got a quick question for you, Doc, because I was kind of looking at like multivitamin stuff. I've been thinking about maybe taking a multivitamin. This one I'm looking at is saying 1,000 IUs of vitamin D3.
That's 20% of what you need.
This says it's 125% of your daily.
You know when the daily requirement was set up? 1940.
I was just asking.
I'm
5,000 IUs is what you recommend.
Yeah, the daily amount is 400 IUs, and that was set up in 1940 when we were an agrarian society, and we got out in the sun an awful lot. That has not been changed since 1940.
Okay.
So I'm not beating you up, Travis, so don't get the tears out of your eyes. Get your head out of your ass.
We haven't had
That's where my head always stays.
We haven't had any scrappiness going on here like this. I think this is pretty good.
But so that's why I don't take multivitamins, is because they go by the lowest amount that they possibly can. So you can get...
Well, but they'd still be good to take versus not taking anything, right?
Yeah, they're better than that. But, I've had people who are taking stuff from, places that charge an awful lot and still are vitamin D deficient.
Here's what I'll say to you, Travis. I have been on and off multivitamins. I'm currently off, and part of it has to do with Dr. Jack Cruz. I would recommend you listen to do search on Gary Brecka and look at methylated vitamins as opposed to just a standard multivitamin. Look at methylated and look in the science behind that, because out of all the things that I've looked at, to me that makes the most sense. They might be a little bit more expensive, but I don't think it's tremendous.
Yeah. Well, that's that's why I don't take multivitamins, is because they will give you just enough for you to think that you're doing the right thing.
That's what I used to do in college.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
Wait,
where's my wait? It's got to be here somewhere.
Which one are you giving?
There we go. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on. I think did you get your question answered there?
Yeah, I was it said that that was
1,000.
and
So we've got several different directions here that I want to share. End in some clips here. We could talk about J6 because there's some good information there that I think is going to be coming out. Doc mentioned measles, so I think there's a couple clips that I have on measles that I'd like to talk about. And the Doge effort. There's a gal that just got doxxed. She was formerly went by Data Republican, and she's a mute deaf person who started working for Doge, and sounds like she's a genius, like one of those people that's off the chart smart.
Yeah.
And there's a big thing going on with her right now that I found super interesting that most people probably didn't see. So which one do you want to start with?
Well, what J6 thing you got? I haven't really heard anything about J6 other than Orange Man bad and how he incited violence.
Yeah, so the whole thing, for those paying attention, is if you listen to the mainstream media, they've got a certain narrative. Orange guy bad. He incited an insurrection, and that's why he was a threat to democracy. That's why he had to get removed. Blah 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 blah. That was the thing that we heard for so long. Let me try to find it. That was probably the last one that I was trying to find here. Is there an airplane flying over? That's exciting.
That's like the second one. I heard something earlier. I pulled my earpiece out. I was like, what the?
They're landing.
Ours are there.
And you've got the window open. I'm the first one to go.
Oh, there you go. All right. I think I'm.
I guess if you guys see my head explode, you know to go under the desk.
Yeah.
As long as they didn't take this down. Hang on a second here, Travis.
Oh, okay.
Remember, if you can hear it, it's not meant for you.
Well, fair enough.
Okay. I think.
I'm one of the original 45 Jan 6ers that got thrown in the gulag down here back in 21-22. Tortured by our government to turn over.
When you say you were tortured, give us some details. What do you mean tortured? The government doesn't torture people. Come on, man. This is the United States of America.
They literally deprived us of every single constitutional right that we have. I was defending myself against the government, and all I had to do that with was a pen, a piece of paper, and a pocket constitution that I had bartered with another guy to get. When I demanded my discovery, they sprayed me, they beat me, and they threw me into solitary confinement for over 100 days straight. All of this in an effort to get me to say that Donald Trump was responsible for what happened on January 6th, which was an utter lie. They deprived us of food, they deprived us of water for punitive reasons. For up to 3 days at a time, they shut down water in cells.
Hold on, hang on. Tell people what solitary... Look, I was in a cell block in a cell. The shoe is nothing compared to what you... Tell what solitary confinement is what, and how does it work on you psychologically?
Solitary confinement, anything over 15 days by international standards is considered torture. Reason being is they put you in a cell where you have 5 steps that you can take. Think about living in your bathroom without the ability to shower. You never see a person, your little slot in the door opens up on occasion and some crappy food comes through. They are supposed to do that 3 times a day. Rarely did I see that actually happen 3 times in a day. You would walk 5 steps, turn around, 5 steps, turn around, and you would try not to think about your kids. You try not to think about the girlfriend that left you. You try not to think about your house being lost, your job gone, your reputation, the fact that all of America thinks that you're these evil insurrectionists when we did nothing but stand up and get attacked by our government. Through that process, you start to go insane. There's absolutely nobody on this planet that can sit and take solitary confinement. Your brain starts to go crazy. You think that you are dead at some point. You ask what happened. If you don't have God in those moments, you will go insane. And at one point, I broke down and asked God, why me? Of all these people that went to Jan 6, why was I the one that ended up in solitary like this? And he answered me. He had answered me twice in solitary when I prayed. And he said simply, because you can endure. And that was when...
All right. So the reason I shared that is because that's been one of the stories that we were told after the 2020 election. It was basically the foundation for how Democrats got reelected and how the media turned, like the impeachment had failed, all the different weaponizations had failed to take out Trump. So the thing that they created that I think is coming out, there's lots of word coming out about Patel, about the things that Nancy Pelosi did and didn't do. There's a lot of things that are getting ready to start coming out here. And I only wanted to say this because we often talk about how unfair and whatever, like we talked about Guantanamo Bay and waterboarding whenever we were talking about, back in the day that political prisoners were tortured. Like this literally happened in the United States of America. It literally happened in the United States of America. And this guy wasn't a riot. He didn't go, it wasn't in jail for assaulting anyone. He didn't do anything but be in the wrong place at the right time.
Yeah.
And so to me, people talk about why, well, we can't be that extreme at cutting. We can't be, the FBI, all these government positions, and, it's just too much. It's whatever. Like, you hear stories like that, and there's nothing too much. No one that I know has gone through anything quite like that. And until you do that, I don't think you can really understand what's going on.
Well, I've known people who've gone through worse, because a great number of my friends were prisoners of the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. And they came back with some horrible stories. Some of them never came back because they died in prison. One guy told me, he said, they tied me with my arms over my head like this, and the weight of my body dislocated both of my shoulders. And they did not give me medical treatment for that. And I had to put my shoulders back into the sockets myself once they cut me down.
Wow.
And that's just one. I had like 6 friends who were in that, in one or the other of the prisons in North Vietnam.
Yeah. So in our lifetimes, for us that didn't, I've got, my family was around. I mean, my uncle died in Vietnam, so I fully understand that. But I think many people are so disconnected from that. And and again, the fact that
that was an enemy that was doing that to him
in a foreign land.
In a foreign land, what he described was in the United States, and it was U.S. citizens, U.S. marshals or whatever they were, that were torturing these guys. They didn't do it as bad as that. They didn't hang them up like that, but they took their food and their water away. Going 3 days without water is pretty bad.
They had no due process.
Yeah.
They had no ability to communicate with anybody.
They weren't sentenced to this. They were just thrown in jail and the key was thrown away.
Yeah. So I only share that because of the extremity of it and how extreme people are thinking these Doge efforts and these different things that are going on. And I liked having context. So I think what I'm getting ready to share here.
I have it turned down right now.
Yeah, I don't think. Hang on. I want to make sure that. I don't even know if I listened to this one, but it's not a very long one. It's 4 minutes. Let's start it and we'll see where we're at. This is Data Republican.
Big picture, with all the databases you're looking at and taxpayer money, how much do you think is being wasted or stolen?
If I had to guess, I would say it's over 100 billion. But what's more important is what they're doing with that money.
The mythical X account Data Republican, shared over and over again by Elon Musk himself, is a real person, a former programmer, now full-time calling out government waste, like exposing USAID. How did you get the attention of Elon Musk?
Honestly, I don't know. You'll have to ask him, but I'm grateful. One day, I tweeted what everybody should. I just tweeted what I found, and then he tweeted everyone should follow the Data Republican. My jaw dropped to the floor, and I thought, what, is this real life? But I guess tech people find tech people. I want to be clear. I don't communicate directly with Elon. He found me and supports my work. But I have communicated with some people that are involved with Doge just on the side. And I don't want to say much more about that, but I have a working relationship.
She goes by Data and uses AI tools to search public databases for waste and fraud. She's been to D.C. to meet with Elon Musk's Doge team and publishes all her findings on X and her website. Charity funding, federal grants, non-governmental organizations funded by taxpayers. It's all there. What do you say to people who think that this data, these databases, these numbers have been out there for a long time, that they've been public for a long time, and that it's sort of like a publicity stunt that they're getting all this attention now?
That's just an ignorant assumption. Data does not equal transparency. I am a database expert, a database scientist. I am a kernel engineer, and the numbers do not lie. What I did was I added the index to the book so that people can actually find the awards, what they're looking for. And you have to understand, without AI, this would not be possible because the book is so large, nobody can sit down and read the entire thing.
Her next project could be even bigger, investigating and exposing what she believes are corrupt politicians and judges. She posted this weekend, still working on the People Connection mega project. This will be my first truly financially high-cost initiative, so I need to get it just right.
So my project right now...
So we don't have to go through the whole thing. That was 2:45 in.
Chad, Chad, can you send me her Twitter
at Data Republican.
At Data Republican.
Data Republican. And I have another clip, I think, of her. Hopefully I can find that pretty quick. But she got, I think after this interview, she did an interview with someone else. I want to say Glenn Beck. And she got doxxed, which basically means someone... She was trying to...
all her information out.
Went through all her information and basically put it out into whatever. And now I think she's really gone full bore after these folks now. Hopefully I can find.
I mean, she's somebody that I feel like needs a royal taste tester or something. I feel like
well,
people who do, like, especially when she's going to go after judges and things now, like I just feel like she's going to show up suicided somewhere.
So here's what I'm trying to get at. You hear all these people arguing and talking about how bad Elon is and what he's doing and the intent that he has behind it, and you find someone like her who's she working for? She found some things and she started sharing them, and she basically got put in the spotlight, and now she's just doing it more. Mm-hmm. And she has reasons for it. Obviously finding out what her reasoning is behind it is going to be part of the deal. But it's like, how do you attack somebody like that when she's just using basic her skills and her passion and going after stuff? I mean, I think I'm envious of her abilities, honestly.
She's got 750,000 followers
in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty good. So anyway, I think she's helped a lot with the USAID drop, and it sounds like she's getting a lot deeper, which is really interesting to me. I don't know, maybe I'm not finding the other. I thought I had another clip of her. I do have some measles clips, and if I find the other one of her that I thought was really good,
we can talk about measles.
Well, let me share.
Measles.
Let me share.
I'm not allowed to say the other words. I just thought I'd yell measles. Just
I think it might be your delivery that was the biggest part of the problem. Maybe not the word itself.
I'm just never going to say it again.
Yeah.
Doc goes, yeah.
I don't know what order. Maybe the order is not
right
on.
Oh, that was just a written post. Yeah, I don't want to do that one just yet. Don't share my screen yet. Sorry if I didn't tell you that right.
I usually don't.
Well,
there's some stuff that comes across your screen that we don't want to see people to see.
Here are some statistics about measles. Last year in 2024, the United States had 285 cases of measles, and 80% of those were unvaccinated and were also from other countries. So,
meaning they came to the country and they
came to the country and were unvaccinated and had measles or were around people who had. It only takes one person with measles to, infest dozens or hundreds of people. We just like that TB outbreak that we had last year. There was one child from the Marshall Islands, and he infected 16 or 17 other people at his school.
That was local?
That was local.
Yeah, okay. I do have this clip queued up now. So part of this for me, again, is putting things in front of Dr. Roy maybe that he hasn't heard or seen before. Sometimes it allows him, maybe he thinks about things slightly different because it's science. There's new information coming all the time. There's new data. There's things that I think in the past maybe you were told or you learned that you heard through sources that even you were like, okay, that wasn't great information.
Yeah,
I have to start looking.
There's a lot of stuff that comes across my tables in the media that I just say, oh man, that's bullshit. And most of the time, I usually type it in there. That's bullshit.
Yeah. So these part of this is we're going to get inundated with a bunch of information, and I'm wanting to share it with you. Get your BS meter on it. This has got Make America Healthy Again. It seems like he's in official capacity. So again, the other part that we have to worry about is some of this being potentially AI created and deep fake, which I have a whole set of reels set up, but I don't know if we'll have time for that.
So emphatic. But we've been ridiculed and lambasted by every one of you over and over and over again, while our children got sicker and sicker and sicker, and more of them died. 38,000 reported deaths for the COVID vaccine alone, and none of you are asking a question. How do they explain that? Wouldn't we pull any other product in the world? No. In America, we say, let's give it to the children now. Let's put it on the schedule for children who have a 0.0002% risk of death from COVID. These are shocking stats that I've never seen you report on. We'll see if you start reporting now that we have a truth teller inside of government. And we'll see if you start reporting as you watch this movement in the hands of the people, the Maha movement, growing every single day. They're going to look for who's telling them the truth. They've seen who's lied to them. Maybe they can forgive you. I will if you start doing your job. Thank you.
All right, so that one wasn't about measles. So
No.
it wasn't about measles, but it's a lead-in. I definitely
Sure.
have measles. Go ahead, Travis.
Sorry, I was going to. Do you have any idea who he's talking to there, or did you do any kind of research? He said you. I'm sure it's media, but was he like Was he in the White House, or was he like?
I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Answer that.
I was just curious who because he kept saying you didn't report. And I was just curious.
Probably a press conference. It was probably
I guess just any
presser.
media in general. I guess he was just kind of generalizing media.
So when RFK basically was introduced, there was a whole series of people that came up and were talking. I think he's part of the team that's kind of in the background. I thought, okay, maybe this might be the same clip. I want to make sure it's right before you pull it up.
Sorry, I keep coughing.
That's all right. It happens. We can sell you some ivermectin.
Allergies. Yeah. Well, going from 20 degrees to 70 degrees in like a 3-day span just kind of throws my nasal passages into a spin.
Welcome to Indiana.
Exactly. That's what I told my wife. I said, well, good thing we live in Indiana.
Yeah, so this is an article. I thought I had a clip. I'm sorry.
Have we had any deaths from measles in the U.S. yet?
Yes.
From that? Okay. I thought we had a couple.
Yeah, there were at least 150 in Texas. And they
that died or that were infected?
No,
okay,
they were infected.
Gotcha.
And one died.
Okay. I thought we had our first death recently.
Yeah,
I do
we
have
did.
A clip.
It was this week.
Okay. Yeah.
But I have a Stossel clip whenever you're ready.
The stats I gave you guys before there was a measles vaccine said that about 2 to 5% would die, and about 30 to 40% would have serious sequela after measles.
Well, so there's a couple different things that are going on out there that I think this Maha movement and these just ongoing discussions are going to get to. One of the things that's been discovered in kids with negative measles outcomes had to do with the vitamin A levels.
Yes.
So there's some treatments there that I think need to be talked about.
Yeah, we talked about that, and what they were doing was the kids with low vitamin A. This was from South Africa. The kids with low vitamin A levels did much poorly than the kids who had high vitamin A levels if they got measles. And Chad's question to me was, why aren't we doing this? And at the time, my answer to him was, we only had 285 cases of measles in the United States last year. And we probably didn't know much about that.
Yeah, and part of my thing is, Doc, is we're getting ready to get fear-mongered here.
Sure.
So rather than us rushing to having some booster measles vaccine, what things can we do naturally to get our immunity better? And
carrots.
There's another thing though that's on the body here that I've read, and there seems to be some weight to it, and I didn't prepare you for it, so I'm not saying you should respond, but there's lower cancer rates in people who've had natural measles at some point. You know what I mean? So there's some effect of getting the measles, triggering this genetic change in the body that
immunologic rather than genetic.
Thank you. So it prepares you to have less cancer in the future.
That I haven't heard about.
Well, I mean, it's just something out there. So
that's why I threw up a chair because because I had the measles when I was 5 years old, and I still have antibodies to measles because about 2 years ago I requested a measles test and it came out grossly positive. That I was immune to measles.
And I had German hard measles myself, and I was like the only case around that had it for...
Yeah, that's a different virus than that. But, I'm very happy. I mean, I always knew that I was either going to die from cancer or from heart disease.
So you're an anecdotal case of... you've had the measles.
Yeah,
you haven't had cancer. Really,
I haven't had anything.
Well, I think there's certain types of cancer. I think that were lesser in people that have had measles, natural measles.
The only cancer I had was a squamous cell on my back.
Okay,
but I wondered if I was still immune to measles. So 2 or 3 years ago, I had a test, and I was strongly. I had a lot of antibodies against measles because, people were talking about getting measles shots back then, people who had shots when they were kids. Don't we need a booster?
Now it's combined MMR, right? Measles, mumps, rubella.
Yeah, and rubella is what you had. That's the German measles.
Okay.
And that's, MMR. And measles, mumps, and rubella is what they give them now. And I had those shots, but I also had open measles when I was 5. So that was 70 years ago.
Well, I'm going to say this because I'm not an anti-vaxxer per se. I obviously have a lot of questions right now about vaccines because of what we've been put through for the last 5 years. I'm kind of questioning a little bit of everything. But I do have quite a few people that have heard me make arguments or just be open to hearing things, and they send me things like this, should we, and I'm not saying we stop taking measles, mumps, rubella shots, but what I'm saying is if we have an actual body now that is looking at these things and all these vaccine schedules that we have, and we can start pulling them apart again and looking at them a little closer.
We don't have that yet.
I know we don't have it yet. Yeah. So I'm not suggesting that anybody go out and do anything crazy. All right. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying don't take vaccines. What I'm saying is it's enlightening and exciting for people that have had these questions for all this time to have the right people asking questions and to think that we might get some better answers, meaning no, everything is fine. Everything is the way it needs to be. It's as good as we're going to get, or we can make some tweaks. Or like instead of doing the vaccine, if you don't do the vaccine, if you're Amish or you're one of these other people that don't do it, make sure your vitamin A supplements are right, or the other things that you can do to fight the virus once you have it and don't have a super negative outcome.
Right. Well, the reason that I had a number of patients come to me about 5 or 10 years ago, and they said, we're worried about measles because there was a measles outbreak then. And I said, instead of giving you shots, why don't we see if you're immune to measles? So we drew blood, and both of them, the two that came to me, were immune to measles. So I said, you don't need another shot. You've got immunity to measles, and it's pretty good. At that point, I said, I wonder what mine is. So I had my blood sent over, and sure enough, I was way more than they were, because both of these ladies had MMR when they were young, immunizations, where in my case, I had the real measles.
I'm not anti-vax at all, but I am starting to get more and more worried.
Yeah, you are.
No, not at all. My daughter's been. I had the vaccinations back in the 80s and early 90s. Whenever
we had fewer than they do now, like quite a bit.
Way fewer. But my concern is starting to become, what extra stuff are they putting into them? Like I know you say that we need the vaccines, and I'm not saying that you're wrong there. My concern is it's not the same vaccine as it was in, like, say, 1989.
No, it wasn't.
The ingredients can be changed, and my concern now is, I don't know, mRNA or
same person in charge of that did the COVID vaccines.
Exactly. So who's to say stuff isn't put in there for, I don't know, population control? I don't know. Like, that's a little out there, but
that's Bill Gates' land. But he has said that.
I know, but I mean, so that's my concern. My daughter's been on the normal vaccination schedule that her doctor wants her to be on, but her next one, and her next
children have been,
and her next ones don't come for like another 4 or 5 years. She's quite a bit away from the next ones, and I might at that time I'm going to be, unless. Hopefully, RFK Jr. can put my mind at ease.
Well, he wants transparency.
That's what I mean.
He wants to see the science. Just like me, I'm like, what is in this thing?
Yeah.
Show me the ingredients. Show me the long-term studies. Show me how things are better or worse. Like, it's just science. We pay an absorbent amount of money to keep these companies afloat. We fund the things that they then in turn around and make money off of us from. We funded the COVID vaccines. We did all of that, and they made money off of it. So, like, if we're going to do all that, we need to put markers in place and look at the data that we can look back and say, well, that was a terrible idea. Because as it is, we had to look at anecdotal evidence after anecdotal evidence, and then you got thousands and thousands of people dropping dead, and it's like, well, as Dr. Webb says, not anecdotal anymore. But there's no study. There's no official person coming out and saying it. So this clip on Stossel might kind of circle back around to the JFK narrative that I was
low on time, and I want to get to vaccines.
This is from 2024.
If your kids were young now, would you give them the measles, the mumps vaccine?
No. I got measles, mumps when I was a kid. It was
lots of people used to die from those diseases.
Well, you know what? They died in the 1900s or early 1900s. There were about 10,000 Americans a year who died. In 1964, there was about 300 or 400 who died, and they were almost all severely malnourished kids, mainly from the Mississippi Delta. This was before the poverty program, so there was a lot of starving children in our country. It's very, very hard to kill a healthy child with any infectious disease, but particularly with measles. And the World Health Organization now says vitamin A is an absolute cure for measles, which we didn't know about back then. Back then, we were treated with chicken soup, and it was, a week at home watching Leave It to Beaver, and every kid caught it. Every single kid got it. And I had 11 brothers and sisters, and we all got it, and we were all fine. And there are lots and lots of studies out there now that show that kids who get measles as a child are much healthier when they grow up, that they're much more resistant to cancers, to atopic diseases, to allergies, and to heart disease.
There's a clip.
All right, I would love to talk about that more, but we're low on time, and I want to get to vaccines.
Was that a read?
If your kids were young,
no, it just did a circle.
Yeah, it did a circle.
So again, this is part of the reason why RFK got attacked. I know because he made these claims prior to getting in the position that he's in, and so I just regurgitated what I heard from him. That's where my memory came from. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Can I throw something out here?
That's what I always do, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not go out and purchase huge amounts of vitamin A and give it to all your children because it will kill them. Vitamin A is good in small amounts, but good doesn't always mean better. And vitamin A is a killer, and we discovered this in the early 20th century from the Arctic and Antarctic explorers. They would kill a seal or a polar bear for food, and if they ate the liver of the seal or the polar bear, it was full of vitamin A, and they became sick and died. So you can, number one, don't eat seal liver. Number two, don't eat polar bear liver. And number three, if you're going to buy some vitamin A supplements, get the kind that they recommend for your eyes, because it's not very much.
Yeah, so I'm recommending Grok to people now just because I think it's the most advanced large language model, and I'm using this. This is not a doctor. What Dr. Roy is saying is accurate. Don't rush out and buy a bunch of vitamin A stuff. What I think RFK tried to put into perspective is the reason why we went on this massive vaccine campaign is because a certain percentage of people died in the Mississippi Delta.
Yes.
And it just so happened that they were vitamin A deficient.
Yes.
Because of the diet that they had. And you can get natural vitamin D. He said carrots several times.
Vitamin A.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah. Vitamin A. Just here it says carrots, spinach, or liver if you're into that. So I personally am a person that likes liver. Jesse Cosplade, who's my organic farming guy, has some great stuff there. But yeah, I mean, so I think vitamin A deficiency is pretty low. But obviously, if someone, if we get into talking about whether the measles vaccine is needed or not moving forward, we would want to have the proper testing in place to know if our kids were low in vitamin A, right? Wouldn't that be a great thing? So if you know if your vitamin A levels are good and you get exposed to measles, you're going to be like RFK's family, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but you might get the added benefit of lower risk of heart disease, lower risk of cancers. I mean, there's the weight that we have to think about here.
I have never once measured somebody's vitamin A level, but I may do that from now on.
Well, I mean, well, you didn't know. You weren't told by the higher powers, and so now we're getting information that we never had.
Well, I would ask these people, have you what's in your diet? And they talk about liver and spinach, and a few of them talked about liver. Most of them talked about carrots and spinach. But they have over-the-counter vitamin composition that is used in people with eye problems, macular degeneration, and they give it to them. So if you're really interested in getting the right amount of vitamin A in your body, you can get some of these over the counter, and they are the right amount of vitamin A.
Well, I think this circles back around to Travis's question about a multivitamin, because there's not very many kids right now that eat spinach or carrots or whatever, and parents, we are guilty of not kind of forcing these things into our kids' diet, and they're like, ew, I want chicken fingers and fries. And so some of that is on us, right?
They make chicken fingers where they hide it in there. But I have some of those.
So where I'm going to jump to your side a little bit is like if it's a well-researched kids multivitamin and something that Dr. Roy or somebody that's really looking at these things and can compare, like it says here for kids, vitamin A requirements are super low. It has, if you want to share my screen, you can, just for the shits and giggles. But
remember that the vitamin requirements were set up in 1940 and have not been changed.
Right.
In the 80-odd years.
So what I'd like to hear from a follow-up from an RFK on that is like the Mississippi Delta where they were malnourished. They probably didn't have their quote-unquote vitamin A levels at that time, but it really would like to know. There's got to be a test that you can just say, well, you don't have any vitamin A.
It's a blood test.
Yeah. So you need to either add carrots or liver or
these
vitamins just to get that. Then we can talk about, okay, how much harm if the vaccine itself for measles, let's say it's not doing any harm, that you're just not getting measles. But the alternative is if you did get measles, that you would have a lower risk of heart disease and all these different cancers in the future. Yeah. Maybe having exposure to this thing is the body doing what it's supposed to be doing. Like we spread natural immunity. We share germs with each other because we're making each other stronger and less susceptible to death from some random germ that pops up out of nowhere, right? I mean, we're sharing germs all the time.
To the best of our knowledge, that's the only vitamin that has an effect on a viral illness. We don't know about anything else. Nobody has ever said, well, is it good for mumps? Is it good for something else? Is it good for distemper? Distemper, yeah. Or anything else.
Well, I'm very excited about the MAHA. Just having this conversation first with you. Thank you for being open to hearing it. And like a lot of doctors would hear that from RFK and be like, oh man, now we're what are we doing? And they don't even want to talk about the upstream, downstream effect of our choices.
I already saw the results of the kids in South Africa. And Now, you got to remember that this outbreak of measles, the vast majority of those kids are not vaccinated. And but the ones that are, 80% of them were not vaccinated. But that means that 20% of them were vaccinated and still got measles. Mm-hmm. So it wears off after a while. But, you know, having had native measles myself, it has lasted 70 years for me anyway. Guess he's going to the lab tomorrow.
Well, again, I think these conversations and just having robust lab testing, and I know Travis is thinking in his head whether he's doing so just to raise the point or because he's really thinking it. Well, the cost associated with that, and that means we all probably need to run down. And how much is this testing? Well, I know the testing that a very extensive testing that my wife may be getting is like $150.
Yeah.
But it's a full spectrum, and it tells you everything that you've got going on in your body. Is that expensive? Yeah, it's expensive. Is it something that, because of our healthcare outcomes that we're having, that we should think about including in just our normal healthcare?
Yeah.
Like, look at our genetic testing. You said early on, I don't know if we're on film yet early, but you're like, get a genetic test and you know if you are taking the right
medicine for anxiety and depression.
You might be on the wrong thing, and you can learn that through a genetic test.
Yeah,
my wife's actually looking into that.
Well, if you got
specific,
some genetic tests are a few $100. Some of them are $5 or $6, $7. You know,
this one that I'm using now is, if you don't have insurance, it's $330.
Okay, so I mean that's not cheap. It's not.
No.
But whatever.
It's almost an electric bill.
But again, but again, are we in the are we in this to have great healthcare and healthy people in the world?
Yeah.
And especially
That's
in our
the
country,
want. Yeah,
in our
absolutely.
country, or are we focused on medical building bigger hospitals across town, and they're now the biggest buildings and the fanciest buildings that we have are turning into medical facilities. That's not the type of buildings that I want in my life. Mm-hmm. I would rather have better architecture. Let's have some Roman cathedrals or something. You know?
Yeah.
Get something from Greece coming in.
Well, the Pantheon in Rome has stood out for 2,200 years, and it is just as robust as it was when it was built then. And that's because they use seawater to build the concrete.
Yeah. So there's an article from the Defender, which is Children's Health Defense. This is something that RFK helped to start, I believe. Yeah. I don't think he's affiliated with it anymore. But they did report, the Texas reports death of child who tested positive for measles, but they released few details.
Yes.
So, I mean, these are the problems that we have is, like, if they died, you need to tell us what was going on. Did they have low vitamin A levels? Did they have the MMR or whatever? I mean, we need to know this information to make better decisions moving forward.
Well, we don't know that, but the figures from 2024 were that 20% of the patients who got measles had been vaccinated previously. Mm-hmm. So it may have worn off.
Well, so this article basically, just going to this next piece of it, and there's a clip here we can listen to, but I don't want to do that now. We're getting late. Mm-hmm. Basically, it says Texas health authorities today announced death of child who tested positive for measles, setting off a spate of media reports blaming the measles outbreaks in Texas and New Mexico on declining vaccination rates. So again, it's this fear campaign without any real data, without any real information, which is going to bring in the shaming.
How many of those kids had never been vaccinated, and they're probably, were not born in the United States. Mm. So that's.
We don't know their nutrition level. We don't know anything.
No, we don't.
So
we have to assume that they're malnourished.
So we're talking about one child died, which is horrible.
Yes.
Let's not negate any death ever, but. It's like it goes back to the fluoridation question. Do you put the same amount of fluoride in water for all people? Some people who don't need it, some people who get it naturally in their diet, and can cause harm on the backside, the downstream effect. Mm-hmm. Same thing goes with this type of measles thing. Do you treat all children with a vaccine that has potential downstream harm? Yes, it prevents measles, which we can argue is good, better, and different. If we treat it with better vitamin A levels and it brings natural immunity and better health in the long run, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, that might be. But when I did my research on vaccines, the number of vaccine injuries from MMR is extremely low. Mm-hmm. It's lower even than polio.
Again, so you're right, and I would never argue that. So the death from it is one thing, but go 20, 30, 40, 50 years after that and not having the measles and that exposure is that window that we need to have the conversation. Right. It's not causing immediate harm. Right, we could argue that's safe. Maybe it's safe, and it is effective at stopping measles. But is that good?
Yeah, that's good. But we have no way of knowing. We had no way of knowing that the COVID vaccine was going to kill 38,000 people. But it did.
Man, a lot of us felt like it might, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I was definitely like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, my kid didn't get it. I didn't get it. My wife only did because she was threatened with losing her job if she didn't.
Well,
same with that guy.
And that's why I got it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
because they were going to throw me out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, gentlemen, I think we've come to a good end point here, and I, as always, appreciate your time. Dr. Roy will not be here next week if we can only go on Tuesday. I definitely can't go on Wednesday. Thursday's troublesome for Travis. He got out on a one-time pass only on a Friday because he's cutting into date night, I think.
Yeah.
So this is a thing.
Well, I got a speech to give on Tuesday.
If I need a couch to sleep on tonight, do I get to? No.
Well, you can't have my wife's because that's
where she lives.
That's her hospital bed right now.
Oh, is it?
While she's recovering. Yeah, because from the mobility standpoint, it doesn't.
All right, so we off.
Not yet. We're still going.
We're still rambling.
Man.
We're just going.
He's got a foot out the door already.
But
no, I thought we were done.
He's got a bachelor. He's a bachelor this weekend. So he might stop by the Walmart.
Going to the pony later?
Yeah. No,
gentlemen, I appreciate you so much. It's been a great conversation. I'll look forward. Maybe in a couple weeks we'll get back together with Roy. Maybe next Friday if nothing else can work, and if Travis is not going to get a divorce over it, we'll maybe do it.
All right.
But I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks,
right,
everybody.
Hey, good night, everybody.